Deadly storm described by officials as a once-in-a-century weather event.
As landslides reshape the geography here.
Also, we'll be there for the cleanup and the rebuilding after the impacts of these extreme weather events.
Okay, gather your family because you can experience a historic event just by looking into the night sky this week.
15 now. This next story sounds like a horror movie, but it's actually real.
And one of the most read stories on the BBC News website this morning comes from Egypt.
The news may sound like the story of a biblical plague, but it has a modern explanation. Climate change. The rains in Aswan have been the heaviest in 7 years.
Heavy thunderstorms unleash flooding, mudslides, and scorpions. This is in Egypt. Listen to this. 453 people were stung and 3 people died.
500 people getting stung by scorpions. This happened in Aswan, the largest city in southern Egypt.
Egyptians are drawing all sorts of parallels. They're comparing it with biblical plagues.
Last week, the city was hit by a fierce storm. There was heavy rain, thunder, and flash floods. It sent the people of Aswan scurrying for dry land from their mud brick houses. Awaiting them at home were some deadly guests. Hundreds, if not thousands, of fat-tailed scorpions with their tails full of toxic venom. They had been swept from their desert burrows by the rains. They burst into homes through cracks in the walls. But 503 bites in one night is unheard of. That too on a day of incessant pouring. Egypt is a mysterious place. And no, the puzzling pyramids of Giza are not the only reason. What makes Egypt mysterious are also stories like these.
A rare sight in the sky tonight, the longest partial lunar eclipse in nearly 600 years.
Georgians will be treated to the longest partial lunar eclipse we've seen in about 600 years.
If you would like to witness a show in the sky, yeah, it's been hundreds of years since a partial lunar eclipse has lasted as long as this one is scheduled to go.
It'll be visible late tonight into tomorrow morning. It's expected to last 3.5 hours. It'll be almost a total eclipse. NASA says it will cover more than 97% of the moon. It's very sciencey and interesting if you're
What makes this eclipse so special is it's the longest partial eclipse since the year 1440.
But if you're after something a little bit colder, let me quickly take you to Anchorage out there in Alaska in the northwest United States, coming to the end of their Thursday at the moment. Look at the scenes they've had here. Record-breaking snowfall for one day. Some parts of the city in Anchorage saw around 17 inches of snowfall in the space of one day.
As sea ice melts and global oceans warm, sea levels are rising, presenting grave threats to small, low-lying island nations and to coastal areas here in the U.S. One example is in the Gulf of Maine. The ocean waters that stretch from Massachusetts to Nova Scotia are one of the fastest warming bodies of salt water on Earth.
An atmospheric river event affecting parts of Washington State, Oregon, and British Columbia, Canada.
This deadly and devastating deluge delivering an unrelenting blow to the Pacific Northwest, a quadruple catastrophe. Record rain, fierce flooding, whipping winds, and multiple mudslides.
A storm with winds so strong, blowing over this 18-wheeler. The tractor-trailer left leaning over a guardrail. In Bellingham, Washington, heavy rains wreaking havoc, submerging cars and gas stations underwater. 6 inches.
In just hours, 6 inches of rain swamped the region, a state of emergency amid these deadly conditions.
This one, so far, in 31 days, the Pacific Northwest, 40 inches of rain, the wettest days for parts of Canada, and Seattle has had its wettest fall on record.
One disaster now followed by another for a region still deep in misery.
And Miguel, we know a lot of folks still without power.
And adding insult to the misery, 90% of the West tonight remains in extreme drought. This is one of the very few areas that doesn't need more water.
This is a special 30-minute newscast on the day BC was battered by an unprecedented storm, and we were not immune at CTV.
As floodwaters devastate the province.
The entire city of Merritt, BC, has been forced to evacuate due to the floods.
An intense fall storm transforming the road into a river. The weekend's 100-year storm causing extraordinary damage to the vital island connection.
It could end up being one of Canada's most expensive disasters. Mudslides have destroyed highways and bridges, cutting off access to the largest port in Vancouver. And floodwaters are still rising.
We were initially planning for a 1 in 200 year flood when this started coming through. And then all of a sudden that blew through those projections in just a matter of hours.
Record rains devastated major highways. One by one, they were all closed.
There's not a person that hasn't been affected or will not be affected by the events of this past weekend. These events are increasing in regularity.
This one is being called an atmospheric river, which dumped a month's worth of rain in 2 days.
After a summer of wildfires and record high temperatures has come this. More rain in a day than people here are used to in a month.
Several creeks burst their banks, washing out roads and flooding property.
Across the border in Washington state, torrential rains and high winds have also been wreaking havoc, flooding roads.
I mean, this summer has just taught us here in Canada, but I think people around the world, that you don't have to go anywhere. Climate change is affecting everyone at home.
Of the climate emergency in Canada.
Canada is warming on average twice as quickly as the rest of the world. And in our north, it's 3 times quicker. The science is clear. We must do more and faster.
Explosions across the country, at least 10 of them that we can report, all within a week, 10 explosions. The question is, why are high-intensity blasts taking place in China? Are these freak accidents? Labs are blowing up, trucks safely stationed in parking bays are also blowing up, food streets are blowing up, as are residential complexes. It's hard to say they're linked, but it's even harder to rule out foul play because, you know, it's China.
An explosion and fire at a university in the east of China has killed 2 people and injured 9. The accident happened in a science lab at the Nanjing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics.
But here's something that you must consider. The blasts preceded the Chinese Communist Party's plenary. The timing is very significant. As we speak, the CCP's Central Committee is meeting in Beijing.
A cold front is sweeping many parts of northern China, bringing the winter's first snowstorms from Sunday to Monday. Heavy snow has covered areas including Inner Mongolia, Shandong, Tianjin, and Beijing.
Snow hitting China, leaving 1 person dead. Thousands were impacted by a blizzard in northeastern China. Check out this video. The early winter snowstorm hitting hard. Roads blocked, rail services suspended, and schools closed. Inner Mongolia, where over 23 inches of snow fell over 46 hours. That's the longest on record since 1951.
Surprise announcement at the UN Climate Summit in Glasgow. The United States and China have struck a deal to work together on tackling climate change. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry praised the agreement as a step in the right direction.
Despite China's human rights abuses and military aggression, the White House is more interested in brokering climate deals.
How, in the several months of meetings behind the scenes with China, did you bring up some of those very contentious issues, such as the use of forced labor?
That's not my lane here. That's my job is to be the climate guy. This is not a discretionary thing, frankly. This is science. It's math and physics that dictate the road that we have to travel.
China and the US aren't only the 2 biggest economies on Earth, they're also responsible for the biggest emissions of carbon dioxide and methane gases.
The giant of Chinese politics
Xi Jinping.
Behind closed doors, Xi is set to lay the groundwork for an unprecedented third term in office that would cement his position as China's most powerful leader in recent history.
The fact that China trying to assert, understandably, a new role in the world as a world leader, not showing up? Come on.
Chinese President Xi Jinping did not attend. World leaders flew down to Glasgow. Xi Jinping did not. He was missing both in person and online. He did not even make the effort to join via video link. Why did he not? Well, China has an interesting explanation, and you won't believe what they said. China said, and I'm quoting, the conference organizers did not provide the video link method. So poor Xi Jinping could not join.
Isaac, give us a little more context as to why this deal with China came as such a surprise.
Relations between the United States and China have been, in a word, terrible over the last 6 months since Biden took office and even before. And we were not expecting to see signs of a rapprochement, of a thaw, and this really just came out of nowhere.
Even if you are singularly focused on climate change like this White House is, shouldn't they shift focus just for the time being to things like, oh, I don't know, the Chinese Navy, now much larger than the U.S. Navy, things like the human rights abuses?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, China is threatening the United States like it hasn't in a long time. And it's not just the size of their Navy.
And there's new evidence tonight of China's growing military might. It's happening on multiple fronts and fast.
So he has an enormous amount of power, and he's structured the government in such a way that he has created a lot of these small committees or small standing committees, as he calls them, and he chairs most of them. So he really is at the center of every major decision.
And was due to stand down next year. But at a high-level meeting, Xi has extended his leadership by at least 5 years. The Central Committee of the Communist Party passed the historic declaration at a plenary session in Beijing on Thursday, effectively changing the constitution.
Now, one thing that's interesting that we're expecting to happen is that President Xi Jinping and this plenum is going to unveil something called a historical resolution. Now, what is that?
In 2018, China scrapped the two-term limit on the presidency, giving Xi the right, in theory, to remain in office indefinitely. Thursday's resolution puts that amendment into practice.
Critics have been saying that we could see the return, satirical here, the return of some kind of emperor to Beijing if Xi Jinping was able to take a third term and beyond.
We are witnessing a strategic breakout by China. Their explosive growth and modernization of its nuclear and conventional forces can only be what I describe as breathtaking.
And help China make new contributions to Africa and the world's peace and stability.
We've got only a minute left. Big picture. You say China is in trouble and you worry that this wounded animal could be particularly dangerous to us. Why?
Well, first of all, you got simultaneous crises. You've got a stagnating economy, the rolling power outages, COVID-19 outbreaks, which are accelerating, food shortages, a restive population, deteriorating environment. I think that Xi Jinping is going to look for an enemy. Mao Zedong did the same thing in 1966, but he couldn't plunge the world into war. Xi Jinping, because of that large navy that you talked about, he can do that.
But President Xi Jinping, according to China's official news agency, called for the Chinese military to break new ground and said China's capabilities have been enhanced by leapfrog development in equipment and weapons.
Last August, China conducted a hypersonic test that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs compared to the Russians beating the U.S. into space.
I don't know if it's quite a Sputnik moment, but I think it's very close to that. And it has all of our attention.
It's the most significant public acknowledgement by a senior U.S. official that China conducted 2 tests of a hypersonic missile system this summer. Tests which were first reported by the Financial Times.
We don't know about climate action, but China's moves in another department are real and dangerous. Beijing is in the middle of an unprecedented nuclear buildup. How do we know this? Because of satellite images.
Hundreds of new ICBM silos under construction. a massive buildup which has forced the Pentagon to drastically revise the number of nuclear warheads China is adding to its arsenal.
Richard, I mean, first of all, this is a game changer in terms of these weapons, what they're able to do, and how the U.S. response would change as well. I mean, basically, the general's saying, we're not ready for this.
We're not ready for this. It has the potential of changing the balance of power between the United States and China.
It's an astounding pace.
Have the Chinese ever done anything like that before?
It's far beyond what they have ever done in the past.
Nuclear warheads could also be loaded on hypersonic missiles, which are harder to detect than ICBMs.
China already has the world's largest armed forces, over 2 million strong. But it's a new breed of super-fast missiles designed to evade American nuclear defenses.
Now you understand why this buildup is being called unprecedented. As we speak, there is construction going on underneath this air dome. And this is all happening in Ordos, which is in north-central China. Similar constructions have also been spotted in Yumen, Jilantai, and Hami. What exactly is happening in all of these places? The Federation of American Scientists says it's a top secret and highly sensitive construction program, their words. Reports say these silos are intended for missiles. There are at least 300 such silos under construction in China, 300. All of this is part of the PLA's modernization program. What's interesting is that Beijing has neither confirmed nor denied any of these reports. That such extensive silo construction has not been seen since the Cold War.
But I want to get your take on this threat forcing Taiwan to boost reserve force training. The country's defense ministry said that it will be doubling down on combat and shooting exercises as China increases military activity nearly the island, General. And I was looking earlier at how much the world depends on Taiwan when it comes to semiconductors. I mean, semiconductors, obviously critical components that power electronics that we all need, from cars to computers, etc.
I think what the Chinese are undertaking at the moment is a rapid military modernization and expansion, with the aim being to be in a position later in this decade to be able to use military force against Taiwan. That is the critical mission at the moment for the Chinese military. Prepare for that conflict that could potentially occur in the second half of this decade. At the same time, as they're developing these conventional military capabilities, they're also expanding their nuclear capabilities with a substantial expansion in the number of nuclear warheads and missile systems.
What are your thoughts on all of this? This military activity near the island, what the U.S. is doing as well?
Well, President Xi has made an objective of his regime for reunification, to take control of Taiwan. And believe me, we are still behind. The balance of power in that region, Maria, as you know, has shifted militarily to China. That is a fact, and it's undeniable. They also eventually want to be the #1 military globally in the world. That's not the case now, but in the region, it certainly is the case in terms of available forces in that region.
But what the public notices, first of all, is an increase of personality cult. In the recent weeks and months, the state media have exaggerated their praise of Xi Jinping. It became almost absurd. I mean, it's comparable to the rhetoric of the North Korean regime almost.
His message is that China is a superpower and the rest of the world better know it. The Chinese people will never allow any foreign forces to bully, oppress, or enslave us. Anyone who dares try to do that will have their heads bashed and bloodied against the Great Wall of Steel, forged by over 1.4 billion Chinese people.
Have you heard of this? Blasts in China. You may not have, because Beijing is making sure most media do not report it. It is hiding high-intensity blasts, explosions across the country, at least 10 of them that we can report. All within a week, 10 explosions, 10 bomb blasts in one country in less than a week. And this is not Yemen we are talking about. We are talking about China. What's happening there? The first one was reported on the 21st of October. It happened in the Liaoning province. The blast took place at a hotel. It was high intensity. 5 people died, 47 others were injured. 1 day later, there was another blast, this time in Inner Mongolia. The blast was reported at a chemical plant. Again, it was high in intensity. 4 people died, at least 3 others were injured. 2 days later, there were 2 more blasts. One in the Wafangdian city, another in Nanjing. The second one was at a university lab, a laboratory. It wasn't one of those chemical experiments gone wrong or a test tube blast. This blast killed people, at least 4. The next day, there was another blast in another university. This time, it was the Shandong University's Huangdao campus. An explosion rocked the North Gate. Nothing has been reported on the deaths or injuries yet. A day after this blast, there were 3 high-intensity blasts in 3 Chinese provinces. The first one was in Shandong. Some trucks parked in the province's Zibo city mysteriously blew up. Some said the blast was so strong that people staying 20 kilometers from the blast site felt terrified. They felt the impact. The same day, 2 more explosions rocked Guangdong and Jiangxi. On the 27th of October, another blast rocked Guangdong. Now, we don't know very much about where exactly this happened or how many people were injured or killed, if at all. But we do know that on the same day, a blast also ripped through the city of Tianjin. So that's 10 blasts that we've counted so far. 10 blasts, 13 deaths, and many more injuries in just 7 days in China. And that's just on paper. It's hard to tell how much worse this story is. The people in China have a lot to complain about right now. China's zero COVID strategy has fallen flat, for instance. The country is in the middle of a Delta outbreak. And this is being called the worst outbreak since Wuhan, since last year.
This deal is dark there, boy. I ain't even. That's gonna be 2. That's gonna. Yeah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Maybe put that on too. Hallelujah, hallelujah. If I can be heard, give me a Yahoo up in the chat. If I can be heard, that's a little better, bro. It's all good. Give me Yahoo if I can be heard. All praise to the Most High. Forever live the spirit of the Messiah in the hearts and minds of all you brothers and sisters. Bless up, bless up. Nazarene edition, part 45, NehemiYAH.
We ain't stopped yet, man.
Part 45. We're gonna go over some historical, some history concerning the first century Messianic movement in Israel / Palestine and all that, you know, man. Going to it a little bit, you did. Definitely some profound things I bumped into. I was like, dang, this all gets deep. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. I'm talking about before all the, you know, the so-called Roman Catholics and, you know, all that got involved. But yeah, I think it's important for our people, especially for the understanding. You understand? Y'all keep the family of our blood brother Brent Blake and y'all prayers, brother. Boss Life Judah used to be on the chat. Met an untimely end early this morning. Untimely fatal end early this morning. The brother came out for the Pesach, you know, man, got baptized, all that. So, you know, just, you know, may the Most High send the spirit of comfort to the family, man. It was a very, very, very horrific tragedy. I just leave it at that. If some of y'all know Brent Blake or Yeshaya that be on here, I reach out to the brother, and even if you don't know how to reach out to him, just, you know, say some prayers for him and his family. His mother and, you know, the children and all that. All praise the glory now to the Most High. Been a rough week, ain't it, boy? NehemiYAH, boy? Boy, it's been hectic.
It's been rough for me, man. For showing Israel as a whole, bro.
Yeah, brother NehemiYAH has some co-workers that he talked to every morning. Boy, here in St. Louis, boy, some, I don't know, some 50-year-old heathen, boy. Well, what happened? NehemiYAH?
It was too cold for us to do the normal operations at Ivy. So they broke our teams up and run the trucks into intersections. So working on a high major intersection in St. Louis is Telegraph and 255.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the lanes set, like the cones out, and they get the materials off the back of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
It only takes 1 second.
1 second.
And that truck, that car, drove through cones.
Lord have mercy.
Killed Caitlin Anderson, 25 years old, pregnant with her first child.
Mm-hmm.
6 months pregnant.
Lord.
Killed her to where he said she would have to have a closed casket.
Mm-hmm.
Knocked the other guy that was with her, standing by her, knocked him out the way, broke his leg, bleeding on the lungs, broke his clavicle, bleeding on the brain, and broke his right foot, left foot. Mike Brown. Then, while the senior operator was out there, who's all about safety.
Who trains you, right?
Trained me. Mm-hmm. Always keep your head up. He just that 1 second to pull the material to you. Car hit him from the back, smashed him between the car.
You didn't even see it coming,
and the chair.
Good.
The whole body getting in him. And so what really sent me, ain't like I have not seen death before, y'all.
Were you on the thing?
Yeah, we were on the same team. We were actually supposed to go meet up with them. We were supposed to go because we had to go finish another job first.
But you wasn't there.
I wasn't there when that happened. But when you look at the news, to see that little baby's hard head on that ground and her body covered up in that white. And to see the car and the blood, 25 years old.
25 years old.
25 years old.
Pregnant with her first child. 6 months.
So I'm talking about go. They don't care how they drive out. Then, one of our sisters, Rebecca, she go by Alpha Barrel on Facebook. She lost her sister to they call it mammograms until you at least 40. So by the time she, was bothering her enough to go get it checked out, she was in stage 4. Stage 4 came and took out. I'm just saying, then it's just a lot. Then Trent Blake, that's 149 this morning.
Early this morning.
Yeah, it's just a lot, man. Just a lot of death, a lot of things going on. I mean, families forever changed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now we don't abate them. So imagine what they Thanksgiving Christmas is. Now I don't care about none of it. I'm just saying.
I know you ever.
That's what they, and that's what their family expects. So, James is a father, a husband, an uncle, a grandfather. So now she had to bury her 58-year-old son. And then this mother got to bury her 25-year-old daughter and an unborn grandbaby who already had a name, Jax. Like we all knew that. They were just planning her baby shower that morning.
And you speak to these people on the way every morning.
I took her hard to ride. It hit me hard. I talked to the grief council. I ain't never did that. I'm like, what is this? And she said, usually as you get older, men tend to get a little bit more, intact with their emotions than they was when they was young. Plus, you got wives, you got children, you got grandchildren. What happened is you see your children in that situation. That makes sense? I forgot the word she used. It's empty, but it's kind of like you impose that situation, your children into that. So because that could have been your child or your grandchild, it hit you hard. Then, the normal stuff that you went through that came on you for what you was out of. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, and I ain't lying, my ex-girl said, hey man, I was hurt. Now he talked to me, kept me together, man, prayed for me. My mom, y'all know they wrote her off as dead.
She all good though, all praise.
Yeah, I just put some new pictures in the room, man.
All praise.
Both wives was see this morning. And they worried about her liver. That's about the only thing why she's still in there. Trying to see what's going on with her liver. But she done bounced back. She done bounced back. She was at
The prayers of healing. They wrote off.
What? They wrote off, bro. That's all people do is make her come. I said, nah, we ain't doing that. Now they said, go up there and lay hands on your mother. What I do? Went up there and laid them hands on me and my daughter. Had all my children we didn't know. Had all my, as many I can gather, meet me up there, but you can't take everybody up to ICU. So me and my oldest went up there. And, man, we walking down, my mama bleeding out of her nose, tongue bleeding out of her mouth. I'm talking about they got gauze in there and everything. Bro, I'm talking about, bro, I ain't ready. I ain't lying. I ain't ready. All that hard, old, big homie stuff, I ain't ready. I ain't ready, bro. I ain't ready. So my heart goes out to everybody that lost this week, because I at least 4 deaths I know.
Yeah.
Their death for my mom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And praying for the full recovery of my coworker Mike Brown, man. I know it's gonna be a long road back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And definitely the Prince Blake, man. My brother was totally distraught.
No. But look, it's a sobering reminder of how precious life is, man.
Yeah.
Life is precious. Enjoy every moment you got. You did. But there is none of that in the grave. You ain't never seen a U-Haul being pulled by no hearse, have you?
No, you ain't taking it with you.
You ain't taking none of this with you. The comedians tried that. You see what happened with that? That got robbed.
Hundreds of years later.
Yeah, so you ain't taking hey, make the most of what you got right now. You better. I got a few deaths in my family past week, 2 weeks. Like a little cousin. They found dead in his jail cell.
Oh yeah, I remember you told me.
Yeah. My great uncle died down in Arizona, but he lived his life though. I found out they cremated him. I'm like, what is it? I don't know, man. I found out that's what he wanted to do. And then a little homie, little fuzz, I kind of watched grow up or whatever. I just found out 2 days ago he died. I said, boy, what is going on around here? There's a lot of death going on during this dark season. You know what I mean? There's a lot of it, bro. You dig? So, I mean, take every advantage of what you got right now. You understand?
Just read right here. My boss just text me, say, I know it's a Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
They know, say, I know it's a Shabbat.
Absolutely.
He said, man, just can you put a prayer up for me, man, for James? Go on, man. I miss him.
Serious business, man.
Serious business. This is my boss. Tell me to offer prayers for him. He knows because it's Shabbat.
There go Print Blake right here in the chat right now. Y'all, that's Print Blake right there, y'all. Yeshaya ben Israel. That's Print Blake. Well, yeah, it's probably a delay on TV. That's Print Blake right there.
Yeah, that's the brother who lost his brother.
Yeah. They came out to the Passover.
I remember that.
Yeah, they all got immersed, baptized, and all that. Yeah, very, very. So y'all keep this brother. You feel me? Reach out to the brother if you can. But keep this brother and his entire family in y'all prayers. Send forth the spirit of comfort toward the family, man. Yeah. That right there was major. Some brother that lets you know y'all definitely in our prayers. Hebrew condolences. And may the family heal. May the family heal from behind that, Hebrew. Our praise and glory now to the Most High. Hallelujah. Yes, I reach out to the Ak, man. I let him good brother. The sincere brother. And sometimes we need people to rap to. You dig? Here, I want to start this off though. Just real quick with the scripture. We're going to go to Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. Start this off with a scripture real quick. And then let's get it in. Y'all see the title. We're going to go over some history today. All right. We're going to go over some history today about the first century Messianic movement in Israel. A little history, a little taste. All right. Let me go to Ecclesiastes 9 real quick. And this bags up what I was saying. These things, death is a sobering reminder of how precious life is. You start putting that stuff in its proper perspective. You know what I mean? Then a lot of the little petty, minute stuff go out the window. All right? It goes out the window. All right, so let's get into this real quick. Bang. Let me hit the share screen real quick.
I think it was about a day or two ago. I was just sitting on my phone like a short.
Good boy.
I was just sitting there on my phone. and I'm gonna just say being idle. You know what I'm saying? And you know, that voice came in my head. That voice came in my head, and it was like, you can be taken out right now. See? And then I promise you, I got up and I went to the bathroom, and my heart just started beating fast. I'm like, where did it come from? You know what I'm saying? And I realized, and I'm feeling like, well, you ain't you idle. You're not doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing that's, you know what I'm saying, that's gonna preserve your eternity right now. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing at all.
Yeah, man. So look, let's get this right here. We're gonna read Ecclesiastes 9. We're gonna start at verse 3. All right, Ecclesiastes 9 and 3. Let me know whoever got it. Let's go ahead and throw down on the word real quick. Let's get her done.
This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun. That there is one event unto all.
There is what, boy?
There is one event unto all. Yeah. Also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live. And after that, they go to the dead.
Oh, wait, boy. Oh, wait, go ahead.
For to him that is joined to all the living, there is hope.
There's hope while you still got breath in your body. That's why you're supposed to enjoy every minute of it. There's hope for you if you still breathe. There is hope if you're living. All right, go ahead.
For a living dog is better than a dead lion.
That's major right there. Because a lion is what? The king of the jungle, so they say. But if he dead, a living dog is better than him. Right? Living dog is better than the dead lion. All right, go ahead, Out.
For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything.
Right.
Neither have they any more a reward.
Right.
For the memory of them is forgotten.
So they're saying the dead understands and have knowledge of death. Right? All right. The living understands and has the knowledge of death, but when it Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, y'all. But dealing with the dead, they don't have any memory, meaning whatever you got going on here, you know what I mean, all your little jealousies and your hatreds and your arguments and all that, none of that goes to the grave, which none of it. All right, so you really got to put everything into its proper perspective. What does it really mean then? What does it really mean? Right? Go ahead. And notice what it says, for the memory of them is what? Soon forgotten. Right? As years go by, the memory of them fades more and more. You ain't talking about them as much as you used to. You see that? All right, go ahead, Out.
Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun.
So all your emotions, love, hatred, envy, all that, right? Can't take that to the grave with you either. It's all done. And y'all, the crazy part is we all live as if we ain't gonna have to cross the threshold of death one day. We all live like that. You know what I mean? If you know how precious life was, you wouldn't spend so much time wasting time. You know what I mean? The most precious commodity you got outside of the breath of life is time. Right? And some you can't get back. You know how precious life was, you wouldn't be, like you were saying, idle.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be wasting time. Because the clock's ticking, right? Go ahead.
Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart. For Yahweh now accepteth thy works.
So he's letting you know, like that's what I was saying earlier. Make the best of every moment that you have. You understand? It don't pay you nothing. It don't pay you nothing to be in this deal all sad and you know the Bubba Gump lips. You know what I mean? It don't make no sense to that. You see? Go your way, eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry or a happy mind. For the Most High now accepts your works. All right, go ahead.
Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity.
Of your vanity. Ain't that something? They tell you live joyfully, enjoy the now moments. Live joyfully with your wife, whom you love all the days of the life of your vanity. Ain't that something? Trip off that. Of your vanity. It's all vanity and vexation of spirit, huh? Truly, if you ain't on the right path, you just a waste of breath. Good night, boy. That's serious. Look, it tell you to live joyfully, right? Enjoy yourself. It's all vanity, though. It's all vanity. Go ahead,
which he had given thee under the sun. All the days of thy vanity.
All the days. He doubled up on that vanity, didn't he, boy? Hey, think about that next time you get overrode or overridden with some spirits to get angry or get jealous or get whatever it is. All this is vain and vexation of spirit. You ever wonder what they call that? What they call it in the bathroom? They call it in the bath. I ain't talking about the toilet or the tub. So what's left? No, I ain't talking about the shower or the tub or the tub. The vanity. They call the sink and the mirror the vanity stand. The vanity. The vanity. All the days of the life of your vanity. Go ahead.
For that is thy portion in this life.
That's your portion reward. Look at Derek's got away with words. Well, that is thy portion in this life. Go ahead,
And in thy labor, which thou takest under the sun.
Come on. Now watch this. Verse 10 is the nail in the proverbial coffin. Go ahead, Hold on, this is late. The proverbial coffin.
Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might.
Do it with your whatever you decide you're gonna do. You better get to it. Whatever you got planned to do, you better be working it. Do it with your might. Go ahead.
For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest.
So in reality, how precious life is, huh? If we really understood what death would teach us is that we don't got no time to waste, huh? You understand? Time is working against you. We ain't got no time to play around with none of that. You dig? Straight up. Yeah, real talk. What y'all think about that? Talk to me. Talk to me, what is?
No time for that. What I just done.
What you say?
We got no time for error.
No time for error, huh? Man, you better be using life to either win or learn something.
That's one thing that I didn't just learn my whole, this whole week or whatever. Or, last week, basically all the things that, I didn't been giving advice to people or things I didn't been teaching and preaching to other people. Like life been set it up where all that stuff is now coming back to me. Like, it's now time for me to actually understand and do the things that I'm saying. Like, I've been getting hit with a lot of emotions, myself that I didn't have to deal with, like I ask for peace and I be getting war, but I get the war only to show me how to get that, how to find peace and stuff like that. I just been expressing myself more, learning how to express myself and be real with myself. Just to, it's just been, life just been showing me and giving me a whole lot of lessons, just concerning like what I need to do, like all that knowledge that I didn't accumulated, from all these years was only to prepare me for right now to like, okay, you know what to do, now go ahead and do it. Instead of telling people what to do, like you do it yourself. And then like, it's kind of like what you were saying of like, yeah. And just leaving, this place, leaving this place. And when you come back, then saving your,
I was just, yeah, the brew had brought up the being in the Matrix and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I said, this is the time of the awakening. I'm like, you already got your pills off of it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's what you can do with it. You know what I'm saying? That's you already like me. I was saying certain stuff about, you know what I'm saying, just going out doing certain things to get certain revelations and all of that. And it's like, well, you know what you got to do to do it. Just like when you gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? It's a matter of if and when you're gonna do it. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's already there in your mind. Right. You know? Yeah, that's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it goes back to the passage in the script. The whole thing is just time is short.
Get it done.
And look, we just on the verge. Every one of us on the verge just to find ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Because truly, that's all that we can be is us. You know what I'm saying? Like, for a long time, me even personally, you know what I'm saying? Just in all my life, I didn't been with people that told me I was, instead of really being who I am. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I've been just on the verge to just, you know, on a journey of finding myself so I can really become myself, like, you know, like a parable or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like a fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like a tree or a tree, right? A tree cannot be anything else but a tree. You know what I'm saying? But what a tree's purpose is that it gives fruit. You know what I'm saying? It gives oxygen.
It got a purpose.
It got a purpose, but it has a purpose being itself. Like, it doesn't have any influence of like, I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying, be this way, I'm gonna be that way. It's like it was how it was created. So the same with every single one of us. Like, you was created to be you. You was created to be you, and you was created to be you. So it's just like everybody has their own purpose, though.
No, they don't.
Everybody has their own. So it's just like, so just the.
Y'all clowning over what y'all was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That's Nehemiah. Okay, y'all, we about to get into this right here. Robert Eisman's book, James, the brother of Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, Volume 1, the historical James, Paul, the enemy, and Jesus' brothers as apostles. Excellent read. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over to page 101 all the way over to 108. All right, I want to hit some of this and bring some of this stuff all the way out. All right. Excellent read. I would advise you, brothers and sisters, to get that. Get this. All right, come in. He's coming mainly out the Dead Sea Scrolls and also like out of Josephus and all that. They're dealing with history. All right. Because the war between the Israelites and the Romans that went down, you know what I mean, prior to the fall of Jerusalem is very well documented. All right. And what Robert Eisman goes on to say is that that was a Messianic war. You know what I mean? That was actually a Messianic war. All right. Different groups of Messiah believers warring against the Romans. I'm like, oh, what? All right. So right here is the Simon who wishes to bar Herodians from the temple as foreigners. Nehemiah, where that stone? You got a picture that's, remember we found a picture of the inscription of that was in the temple, saying that if Gentiles get past, if you go past this point, you dig, like they didn't straight found these things, and if you find it, send it to me because I actually want to show them that. You dig? I want to show them that. All right, the Simon who wishes to bar Herodians from the temple as foreigners. Yeah, this is major. Now trip off this. And again, you may read or hear something that you don't totally agree with, but you know, it's all good. If it resonates with you, rock with it. If it don't, hey, you know, it's all good. Just putting the information out. Page 101, chapter 11. All right. Who got it? Let's get her done.
Like groups that wish to kill Paul for introducing Gentiles in the temple, even if only spiritually or allegorically, or as heirs according to the promise, as he puts it in Galatians 3:29. But there are also zealots who wish to bar Herodians from the temple.
So he's speaking Acts 21st chapter, when Paul was in, James told him, well, look, this is what you're about to do. You're about to pay for this vow right here, and that way everybody that's here would know that you walk orderly and keep the law. Right? A few days into that, somebody was like, hey, y'all, this the cat that bring Gentiles into the, he done brought Gentiles into the temple. What temple is he talking about? He couldn't be talking about abroad, because the Most High temple ain't abroad. You know, they got pagan shrines abroad. You know what I mean? And they was not talking about him bringing Gentiles to the synagogue. He didn't come to Jerusalem. Paul came with some Gentiles to Jerusalem. You see what I'm saying? And brought them into the temple. And that right there is what invoked that riot that almost got him killed. You know what I mean? Because again, when we pull that up, you're going to see they got the archaeology out there. They got the actual sign that used to hang, it's a stone inscription. It used to hang up in the temple. And it say any Gentile past this point will be put to death. Dang. You know what I mean? That almost got Paul killed in Acts 20, the 21st chapter. Yeah. And if not, the Secret Service hadn't showed up and whisked them away.
It's like, I'm a Roman citizen.
You know what I mean? But look at this right here. All right. Go ahead. Now watch this.
Josephus will introduce us to one such zealot leader. One Simon.
One who?
Simon.
Simon. All right. It's not Simon Magus. This is a zealot leader. When it says zealous, it's talking about those who have zeal for the law of the Most High.
Simon the Zealot.
All right. Now watch this. Go ahead.
Who called an assembly of his own in Jerusalem.
Assembly is a church. Now, who is this Simon called a zealot leader? Who trip off this? Who has a church or an assembly in Jerusalem? Go ahead.
The time is the early 40s.
Come on.
The very word Josephus used in the Greek.
Uses here in the Greek.
Uses here in the Greek is the same word used throughout our sources for the church or assembly in Jerusalem.
So it's the church. Who is this Simon who is zealous for the law of the Most High, who has an assembly or church in Jerusalem? That means he's Messianic. That means he actually believes in Messiah. He got his own assembly. He got his own church. He got his own, you understand? Now, who is this? Who is Josephus talking about? Now, you got, this is in the early 40s. So this is roughly a decade after the Messiah had been crucified. So this is one of his disciples. Well, wait, go ahead.
It says that is this Simon, whom Josephus refers to as somebody, again, and very scrupulous in the knowledge of the law, is the head of his own church in Jerusalem. Contemporaneous with Simon Peter depicted in Acts.
Okay, now watch this, because you're gonna see where Robert Eisman arrives at. You understand? When he's comparing the history that's documented compared to what we call the New Testament literature that we have. You see what I'm saying? You're like, well, the history say this Simon right here followed the revolutionary Messiah, was zealous for the law. You dig? Was one to bar Herodians from the temple. You feel me? Had an assembly of Messiah believers. Was the head over an assembly of Messiah believers. And this is roughly a decade after the Messiah died. So you're going to see where Robert Eisman arrives at a point to where he's going to say who he thinks Josephus is talking about. All right, now watch this. Go ahead.
And what does this Simon wish to do? He does not wish to admit Gentiles in the community.
Into the community. Go ahead.
As Acts pictures Peter being instructed to do after receiving his vision of the heavenly tablecloth on the rooftop in Jaffa.
Acts 10, verse 1 to Acts 11 and 18. Talking about with Cornelius and all that, right?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Rather, the Simon and Josephus wishes to bar Herodians from the temple, which belonged only to native Jews.
Bar Herodians from the temple only belongs to native Jews. Yahudim. All right, go ahead.
As non-Jews.
Okay, hold on. I got you, brother. I got you. Hold on. It's heating up, Darius. Hold on. Hold on.
Let's point the finger a little bit more.
Hold on. Who we talking about here?
Put the dot on it.
He gonna tell you who he believed that in history who this is referring to. All right.
Gotcha.
You got it? Email it to me if you can, brother. And
it refers back to Josephus.
okay. But you got the actual picture. That's it. That's it. Send that, please. Email that to me. I'm in humility. All right. Go ahead.
It says unclean.
Mm-hmm.
It is the position of this book that the Simon and Josephus is
the demythologized.
Okay,
demythologized.
It says that the Simon is in Josephus is the demythologized Simon in the New Testament.
He's saying the position in this book is who Josephus wrote about is Simon Peter, the New Testament. So what does demythologized mean? All right, let me show y'all that real quick. Let me show y'all that.
It just sounds like
yeah. Okay, well, send me that what you call it again. I know, but trip off this. So he said it is the position of this book that the Simon and Josephus, who wish to bar Herodians from the temple, who's zealous for the law, you understand, who has the leadership over a certain congregation in Jerusalem or a church in Jerusalem, is Simon Peter and Acts. And he's gonna tell you why he arrives at that conclusion. Now, so what does demythologized mean? All right. Hold on. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Hold on. We cooking now. We cooking now, big dog. We cooking now. Hold on. Let me see if y'all can see this. Let me know if that pop up. Or do I probably got to stop sharing and then. Oh, no, that's it. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay. Now look what the demythologized mean. I'm going to pull it back up on there. Now watch this. I say, okay, this is where we going. All right, what does demythologized mean, brother?
To reinterpret a subject or text so that it is free of mythical and heroic elements.
Yeah. He undertakes to demythologize the man who has been for many the modern counterpart of St. Augustine. So he basically saying there's a difference between the historical disciples and apostles versus the apostles and disciples you have in the literature. You know what I mean? He's saying that what's in the literature of the New Testament is based off actual revolutionary zealots that followed the real Messiah. You know what I mean? That's what he's saying. I was like, oh, okay, we cooking now. Hold on. What's going on here? You dig? So, I mean, again, he's going to go into, as we keep reading, you're going to start seeing that where he arrives at, he's basically saying that we all been victims of literary propaganda. You know what I mean? It's been, in other words, the message of Mashiach and his disciples have been romanticized. You hear Roman in there? Yeah. Romanticized. You know what I mean? The custom fit, you know what I mean? The powers that be. Absolutely. Absolutely. I got something else I'm going to show y'all too. Y'all be like, dang. You know what I mean? This is crazy. You dig? Like if I was to ask you right now, what, like, I'm gonna wait. I ain't gonna do it yet. I'm gonna wait. We gonna get it. Yeah, I'm gonna wait, big dog. I ain't gonna do y'all like that right now. I'm just gonna let it unfold. All right. I'm gonna let it unfold. And it's a reason why he's saying this, right? All right. So it is the position of this book that the Simon and Josephus, the demythologized Simon in the New Testament. All right. Meaning the historical Simon Peter is different from the Simon Peter, you understand, that we have in the New Testament literature.
Factuality from there.
Right. That right there is based off what you have in the New Testament literature is based off an actual man that lived and was, followed the revolutionary Messiah. Because after all, his position in the book is that the war between the Israelites and Rome was a Messianic war fought by Messianic zealots who followed the Messiah. I was like, oh, wait, okay. Dang, okay. All right, what else we got?
It says
in the New Testament, just as
Josephus, John the Baptist is the
demythologized
John.
He's saying, so how John the Baptist is presented in the historical record, you feel me, is different than what you received in your, your New Testament literature. I said, oh, so you get a different story when you search the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Josephus about the Messianic movement of the first century. It's a total different, story. I mean, everything in there false and nothing like that. I'm just saying. All right, now watch this. Go ahead.
Says furthermore, in the next generation, not only do these same zealots wish to bar Agrippa the first, Josephus, true to his penchant.
Furthermore, in the next generation, not only do these same zealots wish to bar Agrippa the first, son of Agrippa the second from the temple, but his sister Bernice too. Trip off this. Where do you read about Bernice and Agrippa? No, she a Canaanite. That's where do you read about Bernice and Agrippa? In Acts, don't you? In Acts, during Paul's trial before Agrippa. But that's Agrippa the second and his sister Bernice. Now, what does history say about them? What does history say about them? See, they were successful in barring them from the temple right before the fall of Jerusalem. They got them Herodians about it. Like, y'all can't even come up in here.
Y'all ain't welcome.
Yeah, I mean.
So them Paul types got kicked out.
But not look, I'm like, glad you said that. We're going to keep reading. There he said, you Paul. What'd you say?
Paul bearing
Paul believers. Now look. Now, what does history say about Agrippa the second, who Paul defends himself in front of in Acts? I believe like 25, or maybe chapter 26. He defended himself, right? And his sister Bernice is there too. It's another one named Drusilla that's there. Yeah, all these are Herodians, Edomites. All of them. Watch as we keep going. Now watch this.
It says
Josephus.
Yeah, Josephus, true to his penchant for sexual
innuendo. Innuendo.
Note that Bernice was rumored to have had an incestuous.
You hear this? You hear this, Nehemiah? Look, Josephus let it be known that Bernice had an incestuous relationship with who?
Agrippa the second.
Her who? Her brother. They was boning.
Wow.
You see how it's unfold?
That's why they couldn't go up in the temple.
Oh, now trip off this. Watch this. Come on.
This is very much the picture that emerges too in Acts, where Bernice appears together with Agrippa the second, seemingly as his consort.
His consort. His little tenderoni.
That's his
his little thought. And then what they say in the streets, the thought. The thought. His little jump off, but that's his sister. History records that they was boning. They was relations with each, having relations with one another. Incestuous relations.
Incest.
Now watch this. Go ahead.
In amiable interviews.
In amiable interviews.
Amiable interviews with Paul, Acts 25:13 and 25 and 30. 26 and 30, my bad. So does her sister Drusilla,
Drusilla,
whom Acts 24 and 24 has the
temerity
to identify only as a Jewish, a Jewess.
Right, but see, Drusilla and Bernice are sisters. They all brothers and sisters here. But you see how the literature gonna put on there, she's a Jewish, and when you look up Jewish, you're gonna get a female Jew, right? But remember, the Herodians were claiming to be Jews or Judeans, right? See, the history goes into and show that they are related. They are related. All right, go ahead.
Even though by this time, after a number of sexual indiscretions,
indiscretion. Go ahead.
She had deserted the Jewish religion altogether. This Josephus specifically notes, and married Nero's freedman.
Wow. She all over the place. She a hot little thing, ain't she? What?
Straight right.
What about this? What did it say? Nero's freedman, the infamous governor Felix. Felix is in Acts too. He in Acts. Dang, what's all going on here? Come on, Hebrew.
Of course, 52 through 60 CE. Of course, all this will bear on the second theme in the three nets of Belial, in the Damascus document in the letters of James. Fornication, which Paul too is anxious to paper over.
He's anxious to paper over. Now look at this. We got the Damascus document, right? Which is the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Damascus document. Okay. So what Robert Eisman is dealing with is the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Josephus to back up historically what was going down during the first century Messianic movement in what we call Israel or Palestine. All right. History paints a slightly different picture. All right. Now, it's a spot in there called the three nets of Belial. All right. And the letter of James, fornication, which Paul too is anxious to paper over. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Because we got Paul teaching about fornication and all that, in certain spots. But watch this. Go ahead.
Despite his protestations to the contrary, since he himself has relations with clear fornicators.
Who are we talking about? Agrippa II, Bernice, Drusilla, right? Paul off his own mouth called the Herodians his family. His family. So he's like, look, he papers over it because remember, he's in front of them defending himself. You see what I'm saying? That's why he's saying he papering over the situation, bro. It's known that Agrippa and Bernice, you understand, brother and sister, and they got having relations with one another. That's known. Okay, now watch this. Go ahead.
Drusilla and Felix. One could hardly imagine John the Baptist,
go ahead,
who had but 2 decades before lost. I was just going to say this too. Who had but 2 decades before lost his head because
of such confrontation. Exactly, because John the Baptist told the Herod's son, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And that got his head cut off. So Robert Eisman saying, like, Paul, you and her, cowing down to these clear fornicators. Do you think John the Baptist would be talking casually, shooting the breeze, you understand, with some Herodians that were in a clear incestuous relationship with one another? John the Baptist got his head cut off. Here come Paul papering over the topic, papering over the situation. Go ahead. Conversing so what?
It says conversing so congenially. With such person.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been all nice and passive about that. John the Baptist would. He'd have called that to the flow. All right, go ahead.
For that matter, from what we know,
or James. You missed
or
James.
James. Oh, yeah, right. Or James.
Or James. You see that? Go ahead.
For that matter, from what we know of his uncompromisingly
continent lifestyle. Meaning James lived a very, very disciplined life. So you're like, look, you John the Baptist and James, Nazarenes, you understand? Bro, they wouldn't have been, you know what I mean, cowing down and papering over it. Everybody knows that Agrippa and Bernice are brothers and sisters and they boning. Everybody know they sister Drusilla then did her thing and then finally married Felix. You see what I'm saying? So he was like, look, you couldn't picture John the Baptist or James, you know what I mean, cowing down in no situation like that. Oh, wait, watch this. Go ahead.
As it is, it says, as it is, Paul converses with them. There is no reason to contradict Acts picture. Yeah, it says Acts picture at this point with his usual
congeniality.
Congeniality. Or
deference.
Even
obsequiousness. Obsequiousness. I mean, he's just basically saying Paul, you understand, knew that it was all type of fornication going on, these Herodians. You understand? And he papered over it. Real soft about it. But other men were in that situation, like John the Baptist, and he called it for what it was. Doesn't got it. And who ain't? You see? You see? All right, now watch this. Come on.
It is here. It is here. Acts 24:6 acknowledges for the second time that the actual charge of pollution of the temple was being directed against Paul. Then calling Drusilla a Jewess without further explanation.
Yeah, so that means that Paul actually, when he came to Jerusalem that second time, he brought Gentiles with him into the temple. Feel me? That's when that riot broke out. Like, man, hey, man, you tripping? That almost got him killed. It almost got him killed. You see what I'm saying? Now, Nehemiah sent me. Let me show y'all that. Let me pull this up real quick. I'm gonna show y'all the stone. All right. Right, these are artifacts. Let me show y'all that real quick. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a quick second, and then let me pull this on up. We're gonna come right there. All right. Again, y'all, we going over first century history about the original Messianic movement in Palestine or Israel. History records it differently than the New Testament literature that we had. Them brothers was way more zealous and was painted and way more serious. You understand? Let me show y'all this real quick.
Yeah, you would think that them was Pharisees who had started that riot. You would think them was Pharisees that did that at first.
Nah, remember James told when he said, see, I mean, thousands of priests are obedient to the faith and believe, and they all zealous for the law. No, it was thousands. James had to control over thousands of Israelite priests who were obedient to the faith of a Messiah. Right. They all was zealous for the law of the Most High. Zeal. You see what I'm saying? So they are in clear opposition to what Paul teaching. You see what I'm saying? Now watch this. When you watch this, y'all get some understanding so far. Give us a Yahoo up in the chat. Y'all know we ain't trying to lose nobody. Bless up. Blessings to you, brothers and sisters. Bless up. Now look, let me show y'all this because Nehemiah said he sent it to me. Let me see. Let me pull my email up real quick. I'm gonna show y'all that, then we're gonna get right on back. Get right on back. This thing heating up. This thing heating up.
There's head smoke. Even though he was standing up to the truth. He's trying to keep you getting killed by he's sneaking up on our line. But he almost got killed. Okay.
Yeah, here it is right here. Let me show y'all this, y'all. This is historical. This is what they found. Oh, wait. And notice what it says. It says, warning to the Gentiles from the days of Jesus. Again, first century. The first century Messianic movement. First century. That's when all this went down. Yeah, that's during the life of Messiah. First century. All right. History paints a different picture. All right. That's just all it is, man. I know some people are offended or whatever. I actually bumped into a few brothers a couple of days. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room or not. This is a couple of days ago. Right. You know what I mean? Some of y'all know these brothers. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. And I'm like, look, y'all. I'm talking about a couple of days ago, but the most I've been calling meetings around here. Because ain't none of this been planned. I just been bumping into brothers. Was you solo? No, I had Abdiel with me. Oh, okay. I had Abdiel with me, you dig? And me and him just so happened to be together. The phone call came through, right? And you know, one of the brothers, our brother Israel, was like, hey, one of the elders want to talk to you. Where you at? He's like, meet up at the shop. Oh, okay. He said, when? He was like, nah. The whole time, he don't even tell him I'm with him. You know what I mean? We got our food, then, you know, pull on up over there. I hops out. So then, by the time, you know, it was love. Dapper, bro, was good. And we get up in there. There wasn't no plan when he seen you. Yeah, we get up in there, and, you know, there's a lot of, you know, tiptoeing through the tulips, you know, on that end. So then, you know, Abdiel threw me the alley-oop. He was like, yeah, I don't know. I've been feeling better since I ain't been, you know, I ain't got no dead flesh up in me no more. That's right. One brother was like, oh, nigga, I'm gonna eat my meat and all that. I said, so we gonna talk about the elephant in the room or not? He was like, what elephant? I'm like, look, y'all been talking about what we preach. I know it. You know what I mean? So we gonna talk about it or not? Oh, I mean, okay. I'll say, okay. So according to the Torah, what is flesh or meat offered to idols? What is that? Just like the other brothers answer, we don't know. Now you know you're not eating it right now. If you don't know, how do you know you're not eating meat offered to idols? Right. You dig? The one brother, you know, it wasn't even for him, it was for the other brother that was there. Because as we was reading, he got down to that verse 7, that Leviticus 17, to talk about don't offer, that they no longer offer it to devils. He said, that verse 7. Yeah, you see it. You know what I'm saying? Ran the whole thing down. Bing, 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 bang. You did, from it being older than 2 days old to, you know, it ain't been brought to the door of the tabernacle. The priest ain't sprinkled the blood on the altar. He ain't burnt the fat on the altar. You understand? Dead flesh is an offering. It is a sacrifice. It is a peace offering. You understand? And, you know, we'll go over there about the law of peace offering and talk about if it's older than 2 days, it's an abomination. Isaiah 66, those is eating swine's flesh, the mouse and the abomination gonna be consumed together. You know what I mean? Right. So, you know, brother, like, dang, you know, send me them scripts, which I found out when I did. I took my time, typed up everything, emphasized certain things, sent it over to the brother. Yeah, he sent it to both of them. That brother sent that to him at 6:15. That brother responded to 6:15 and said, I'm gonna eat my flesh. I'm gonna eat my meat. That means you didn't read. Still said he gonna eat. Yeah, so he was saying, send me the scripts to get that fire off his ass, because he ain't had nothing for me. He ain't had nothing for me, nothing. He did. So he was trying to get up out of it. Them scripts was coming out so hard and so clear that he was like, well, just send me the scriptures and all that. And we send it to him. He did, but I asked him, if you find out what you eating was abomination, would you stop? He froze. I said, oh, today I got to witness what rebellion really looks like. It did, because I'm in this Bible that you claim that you hold so dearly. You know what I mean? I told me, like, the flesh you say you can eat, that says you can eat, that's contingent on it being processed right. It did. When the temple was under attack during the days of the Maccabees, them brothers didn't eat no flesh. Well, the temple gone. How you gonna do that? Well, you know, Christ died in the veil in the temple. Christ was dead and had already resurrected in Acts 15th chapter, when James still said, don't eat meat off of the idols. So that means that's still him dying don't mean you can eat meat off of the idols. You see what I'm saying? Man, most I've been calling meetings around here. I've been bumping into brothers. I'm talking about and it's been the timing been so perfect because had I not been with bro that day, I would have never got that call. Or I've never seen them brothers, you know what I mean? Or had we been somewhere else 30 minutes later, it would have never happened. The timing came down at the right time, bro. Right time, you dig? So yeah, most I've been calling meetings around St. Louis. I'm just happen to be in the right spot. Like that first one I was telling you about, how I've been 30 seconds late, I'd have missed them. Yeah. And I just so happened to catch them walking out the crib. See what I'm saying? Yeah, most I call them meetings. Yeah, but I got to see what rebellion eat after all that, because that brother known to have deep freezers full of flesh. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's abomination now. It's been dead longer than 2 days. Abomination. Oh, I'm going to eat my succulent meat. Oh, okay, you're going to eat it, even though we just went through it and showed it. You know what I mean? Yes. Okay. That's it. I mean, okay. Either you see it or you just don't want to.
Rebellion, abomination.
Yeah, bro. Real talk. Either you see it or you just don't want to. That's what it comes down to.
Man, it's just like, ain't no point. Can't force nobody to do anything. You know what I'm saying? Can't force nobody to be like, to see it. They got to
truth has been presented.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
It has. And that's what I'm saying. Like, brothers sit back and just realize the most I call them meetings right here. It did. And again, every brother I ask that tell me they don't know. Now, how is you in opposition to what I'm saying if you don't know? You see what I'm saying?
So that means they chose the side right there.
Yeah.
They chose that losing
Yeah.
side.
And then I had the brother that ended up the brother that was rebelling the most. Now, he's an excellent reader, orator, right? So, oh, you want me to read it? Absolutely. The very words that came out of his mouth, checked him, convicted him. Yeah, you read it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Read it out loud. He loved reading out loud. He sounds so eloquent. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, it was like it probably wasn't for him at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, he couldn't receive it at the time. Like, I'm finna eat I'm eating and do all that type of stuff, even though the truth was presented to him. It's not always like we don't always register at that moment. Like, at that point, he just planted a seed.
That's it.
For future, he might be like, dang, I remember somebody else might come to him like, hey, bro, you know that flesh, like, you know what I'm saying? That stuff ain't right or whatever. And he'd be like, dang, my brother just told me about that or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? So the clicking is dead. Yeah, I know, right? Clicking his head.
When you look in that mirror, that conviction hit. You know, it's gonna come up every time.
Yeah, it's just not gonna always be right thing and there. They just register with you. You know what I'm saying?
He ain't gonna even be able to skip his mind.
Some of these brothers,
every time you pick that flesh up.
Some of these brothers, I'm gonna say that I believe that they do see it. Just certain things that they're not willing to get down.
It's called rebellion, bro.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Are you really down for the Most High as much as you say you are? You know what I'm saying? That's true. Yeah, or down with the truth. You know, when that truth hits, it's gonna hurt at times or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But they just ain't down. They ain't with it. You know what I'm saying? As much as they proclaim.
Exactly. You dig? Salvation is a tough process, brothers. All right, this right here, warning to Gentiles from the days of Jesus, inscriptions. All right, I don't know what happened to it.
Oh,
right there on the floor. Yeah, click on that. Y'all brothers can see that.
You gotta be real with yourself.
Yeah, you gotta be real with yourself, bro. That's it. Either you see it or you don't want to. That's it. But I ain't as mad at you. But if you was sensible, you would understand. All right. Warning to Gentiles from the days of Jesus, inscriptions. Okay? Now watch this. That's what we talking about, first century. All right. Now look at this. The Jewish or the Hebrew temple in Jerusalem was surrounded by a fence that was about 5 feet high. On this fence were mounted inscriptions in Latin and Greek forbidding Gentiles from entering the temple area proper. Image below. One complete inscription was found in Jerusalem in 1871 and is now on display on the third floor of the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul. All right. There it is right there. If y'all knew how to read Latin and Greek, you know, you'll be able to read it, but you know, I don't have the, you know, I don't have the skill to do so. Anyway, the temple inscription warning Gentiles not to proceed beyond this burial on threat of death. Now you see the reason behind that riot that broke out second time Paul went through, because he came up in there with Gentiles. You dig? And they were like, y'all, this the cat that polluted the temple. Look who he got up in here. All right. All right. All right. The Greek text has been translated. Foreigners must not enter inside the fence or into the forecourt around the sanctuary. Whoever is caught will have himself to blame for his ensuing death. Not sure about this. Yep, they couldn't go past this fence right here. That fence down there. That fence goes all the way around. So you see, they say court of the Gentiles. They can go to this fence right here. See, they're not actually inside the temple. You see what I'm saying? They're not actually inside. It's a fence outside the temple. They can't go no further than that.
Only Jews is going on.
Only Israelites, that's right. You got a court of women. Women can only go so far. You got the court of priests, the actual temple building, all that. All right. So y'all, yeah, that's the inscription right there. All right. He would have his own self to blame for his ensuing death.
That's the temple Solomon had built, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Their place was out here, y'all, outside this fence right here. See the fence with inscriptions, court of the Gentiles. It wasn't inside here though. Right, it was out there in the courtyard, but not inside. Mm-mm. All right.
Even though if they were following the law of the Messiah, they still ain't getting it.
No, you can't, yeah, because they're still different. The first century Jewish historian Josephus mentions the burial and inscription in two places, all the way back to the first century. When you go through these cloisters unto the second court of the temple, there was a partition made of stone all around, whose height was 3 cubits. Its construction was very elegant. Upon it stood pillars at equal distances from one another, declaring the law of purity, some in Greek and in some in Roman letters, that no foreigner should go within that sanctuary. For that second court of the temple was called the sanctuary. Josephus, Jewish War, 551, 193 through 194. All right. Again, we talking about first century, the Messianic movement in the first century. All right. Thus was the first enclosure, in the midst of which, and not far from it, was the second, to be going up by a few steps. This was encompassed by a stone wall for a partition with an inscription which forbade any foreigner to go in under pain of death. Josephus, Jewish Antiquities. You see that? Look at this. Compare the accusation against Paul. Found in Acts 21, 28 through 29. Shouting, men of Israel, help us. This is the man who teaches all men everywhere against our people and our law and this place. And besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple area and defiled this holy place. They had previously seen Trophimus at the Ephesian in the city with Paul and assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple area. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Now look at this. This is also the possibility that this barrier is referred to by Paul when he writes Ephesians 2:14. For he himself is our peace, who have made the two one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility.
Hostility.
Yeah, in his mind, that partition is null and void. Dang.
What he had to keep talking. At the bottom of the wall of hostility.
Oh, wait. All right, let's get on back to what we was looking at. I just want to show y'all that, and that right there is the actual inscription right there, one of many. That's the inscription right there. All right.
That's how I look right now. That.
Now, right there. That's how I look right there. Look. Right there. That's it right there. Wait. All right. Let's stop sharing and get back to this. Let's get back to what we're looking at.
Almost got choked out.
All right, y'all get some understanding. Go ahead and give us a Yahoo up in the chat. What'd you say, bro?
Almost got choked out.
Okay. Yeah, he almost got killed behind there, man. That wasn't nothing to play with. He almost actually got killed behind it. Now, as we keep going, I'm gonna pull something else up for y'all. You're gonna see. I don't want to spill it yet. Y'all gonna see, like, dang, that's crazy.
Yeah. He said I was. Tell him I was a Roman citizen.
All right, what you gonna do is start back up there where it says Acts 24:6.
Mm-hmm. It says, "It is here." Acts 24:6 acknowledges for the first time that the actual charge. The second time. Oh, okay. Yeah, the second time that the actual charge of pollution of the temple was being directed against Paul, then calling Drusilla a Jewess without further explanation. But what kind of a Jewess could Drusilla have been? It was only her father's grandmother, Miriam. Okay, who was native born.
Exactly. Not sure about this. It was only her father's grandmother, which means her great grandmother is Miriam, which was a Maccabean princess. There, she married Herod the Great. Ain't that something?
Her bloodline.
Nah.
She married into that.
Yeah.
Maccabean.
Yeah, or a Hasmonean princess, basically. You know what I mean? Like, if you go back and if you go back and look at what it was, how everything. If you look at the whole bloodline, you'll see it. You say, dang. That's why it's saying, like, well, how could she have been an Israelite or a native Judean when her great grandmother was native born? Not her great grandfather, not her grandfather, grandma. Only her great grandmama was. All right, Miriam was like a niece to Judah Maccabee, like one of his nieces.
Show it out,
A
man.
lot of it was for political reasons. It was a lot of. If you go back and look at it, you'll see what was going on. Marriage out of convenience, politics. You understand?
Out of the army.
Yep. Go ahead, Hebrew. Let's get it.
It says, who was native born, as Josephus puts it in the episode about Simon wishing to bar her father Agrippa the first from the temple.
Yeah, so this Simon, who he's saying is Simon Peter historically, who was zealous for the law, who had an assembly in Jerusalem, wanted to bar Drusilla's father, Agrippa the first, from the temple. Go ahead. And then this is a Messianic brother. This is not just no Pharisee. This is a straight zealot, right? Robert Eisenman's position is the war between Israel and Rome was a Messianic war fought by zealots. You understand? Who believed in Mashiach. Go ahead.
The rest of her ancestors being either Idumean,
Edomite,
Arab, or Greek.
That's it. Go ahead.
Acts does not explain how she merits the appellation, nor what is even more important, that she was a Herodian.
Exactly. Acts don't call her a Herodian, but history does. Yeah, you see. So that means what we have in Acts, if someone is attempting to hide that she is an Herodian. You see that? Again, another position he takes is we've all been victims of this literary propaganda that's been spun. You feel me? All right. And y'all, that don't mean there ain't no righteous Jews in the Bible and all that. I read scriptures every day. You understand? But it's all about what applies to you. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that don't apply to you, that you can't even apply today. You know what I mean? But if it's something that's righteous that apply to you, then, you know what I mean, take that and apply it to your life. All right, go ahead, Doc. Let's get it.
Says, as Luke presents it in Acts, after often conversing with the bloodthirsty Felix about righteousness and the coming judgment, Acts 24, 22 through 23 through 26, I mean. Paul
obsequiously asked
Agrippa II and Bernice of all people.
Did he ask this brother and sister who have relations with one another? Right?
Yes. Of all people.
Obsequious is like he's asking real, you know, soft and well mannered. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like, it ain't no fire coming from him like John the Baptist would have been or something like that. Right? So after conversing with the bloodthirsty Felix, talking about Paul, about righteousness and the coming judgment, Paul obsequiously asked Agrippa II and Bernice of all people, his brother and sister that's boning, y'all. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? Question. I know that you believe, Acts 26:27, and discoursing with them in detail about his vision on the road to Damascus and the Gentile mission. Then Agrippa II responds. Remind you, this man is having sex with his sister. Agrippa II responds, in a little while you will persuade me to become a Christian. Look at this. And Paul, go ahead.
He thought that's how it's supposed to be.
Not sure about this, y'all. Paul's understanding about who Christ is. His understanding. You understand? If there's a difference between the apostles and disciples and the message they taught that they got from Messiah himself and what Paul was introducing, it's totally different.
Does it make sense? Because like he just came to her Herod Agrippa, you know what I'm saying, and you know it's all good. But when John the Baptist come to him, he get his head cut off. So it's like it gotta be something different.
It ain't the same message. If it was the same message, it'd been the same outcome.
He's raw with it.
Yeah, on fire. Now look at this. Now then Agrippa II responds, in a little while you will persuade me to become a Christian. And Paul, not only in a little, but I would wish to God you and all those hearing me this day would very much become as I also am, except for these bonds, because he was locked up, right? Acts 26:28-29. At this point, according to Acts, Agrippa II and Bernice, brother and sisters who are boning, y'all, I can't stress this enough, all right, turn aside to Festus, and this is the year 60-62, and say more or less what Pontius Pilate and other Roman governors are depicted the same in the literature. This man has done nothing deserving of death or chains. Right? Same thing that Pontius Pilate is depicted saying about Messiah. Watch this. Watch this. Festus was Felix's successor. And I remember Drusilla, you know what I mean? The sister to Bernice and Agrippa II, you understand, was bed hopping with Felix. Now Festus comes in. Felix is Nero's freedman. Okay, Nero Caesar. Okay, now who succeeds Felix is Festus, right? Festus was Felix's successor, and it is upon his death that King Agrippa II and his high priest Ananias get together to destroy James. See, they was hitting the Herodians, and the Romans was totally against the Nazarene movement. James is the leader of the movement. To destroy James, as if to emphasize the parallel with what happened to Messiah. Acts has Agrippa add, this man might have been let go if he had not appealed to Caesar. The scenario here of an intervening interview with high Herodians. You like that, Darius? High Herodians. The scenario here of an intervening interview with high Herodians combined with hearings before the Roman governor is exactly, true about this, combined with hearings before the Roman governor is exactly the same as the Gospel of Luke, who also authored Acts. Luke wrote Acts and Luke. But true about this, Luke is Paul's boy. That's Paul's boy. Luke wasn't no disciple. Luke wasn't no apostle. Whatever he know, he got from Paul. Huh? So now what we have here, y'all, so that means his understanding, the understanding of Messiah is coming from Paul. It's coming from Paul in the account of Luke. Where else would Luke get it from? That's Paul's understudy. Luke the physician.
So Luke is like the mythologized. This is the mythologized, like, writer.
No, I'm just saying, like, whatever Luke is writing, he's getting it from Paul.
Might well have been Paul writing.
He's getting it from Paul.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So how the painting the picture of who Messiah is and what the disciples did is mythologized.
Yeah. Ask about this, y'all. What was it? Okay, I'm gonna say it again. The scenario here of an intervening interview with High Herodians. An intervening interview with High Herodians, combined with hearings before the Roman governor, is exactly the same as the Gospel of Luke, who also authored Acts. As Acts develops the story, it is a good thing Paul was not let go, as the Jews were preparing an ambush to put him to death. Acts 25, 2-3. Remember, he done polluted the temple. He brought the heathens up in there. Earlier, similar partisans or Sakari zealots are pictured as having made a plot, putting themselves under a curse and vowing neither to eat or drink until they kill Paul. At this time, Paul's sister's son, a person of some influence, though Acts interestingly declines to name either him or his mama, intervenes and informs the Roman captain. Watch this, y'all. Hold on. It's cooking up, Darius. Hold on.
I straight, when I used to read the script and thinking that they like the people that wouldn't, drink or eat until they killed Paul was like the Pharisees.
No, these was Messianic zealots. Because remember in Acts, he said all these are zealous for the law. Those are your zealots. And they are all obedient to the faith.
And then I would have been like, dang, you got murder on their mind. But also I was thinking that like if somebody was to come and do something to one of your family members or whatever, and you just like in the mindset of like, I'm gonna go do that or whatever.
Commanding the citadels of these things. Now watch this. The latter thereupon provides. Now trip off this. The latter thereupon provides Paul with a huge escort, 200 soldiers, 200 auxiliaries, and 70 cavalry, and conducts him to Caesarea on the coast. Acts 23 and 23. What kind of pull this man got? Bro, that's equivalent today to somebody sending the Secret Service to escort you away for your safety.
Probably was like, I'm gonna go to this temple real quick.
I'm saying you a Nazarene, right? You a Nazarene. You follow the Messiah, who the Romans is, and the whole movement, the Herodians and the Romans are destroying. You understand? Ain't none of them have 200 footmen and 200 soldiers and 70 cavalry to conduct. None of them brothers nowhere. This man got pulled.
Back up.
Presidential pool. Absolutely. The gist of this captain's letter to Felix is revealing this man had been seized by the Jews and would have been put to death by them. But having come upon the scene with troops and learned that he was a Roman citizen, I rescued him. In the run-up to the uprising against Rome in the 60s, King Agrippa II and Bernice, who are having relations, brother and sisters, are finally barred. Look at this, y'all. Finally barred from the temple, and for that matter, all of Jerusalem. See, they kicked them up out of there. That's what the history says. All right? Not sure about this. Even though his great grandfather Herod and father King Agrippa I had been involved in rebuilding the temple. In fact, this building had just been completed in time for its destruction by the Romans in 70 CE, just prior to James' death. Just prior to James's death at the beginning of the decade, the same sort of zealots responsible for this had already erected a wall to block Agrippa II's view of the sacrifices in the inner court of the temple. It had been Agrippa's habit to eat while reclining with his guests on a veranda on his palace, which had a fine perspective of the sacrifices in the temple. It would have been interesting to know what kind of food he was eating and who his guests were on these occasions. These were the things, not to mention that zealot groups like the one led by Simon, and he's saying that's Simon Peter. Simon, the head of an assembly of his own in Jerusalem, would not even have considered him Jew or Hebrew in the first place. To say nothing of the rumor of his incest with his sister Bernice that led to their both being banned from Jerusalem by the innovators or revolutionaries, and the burning of their palaces during the war. They brought them from Jerusalem, the temple, and burned them Herodian palaces. We starting to have a problem here, ain't we, y'all? Now look at this. All right, Belial, Balaam, and polluting the temple. Now look at this, y'all. Belial, Balaam, and polluting the temple. Now look at this. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? It says the extreme purity demanded by such temple zealots throughout the century is vividly presented in the temple scroll. Write that down. Because guess what? The community in Qumran had a war scroll, a temple scroll, purity laws, all the who you call them Essenes and all that, or Nazarene. This is what they had. They had their own temple scroll. Vividly presenting the temple scroll. Some call this document a second law because it deals with much more than just the temple and was delivered in the first person as if God was speaking presumably to Moses and the whole people. And the column about the exclusion of certain classes of unclean persons from the temple, just preceding the one about the inadmissibility of bringing skins sacrificed to idols in the temple. A barrier of the skins, flesh. A barrier of the kind erected against Agrippa II and his dining companions around 61 CE above is called for. This was to protect the temple from even being seen by such persons, and the reference is coupled with the use of the terminology Bela or Bala to swallow. Of course, this relates to the Belial terminology at Qumran. Qumran is the Dead Sea community where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls at. That's Qumran.
That's the land.
Yeah, that's right out, that's out there in the wilderness of what we call Israel. Of course, this relates to the Belial terminology at Qumran and the BL swallow consumed circle of language, which more or less functions in opposition to language with the Zadik root meaning of righteousness. 1 Peter 5:9 knows this language and uses the enemy terminology in speaking of Diablos, Belial at Qumran, then connecting it with an allusion to being swallowed up. It is also connected to the allusions in the New Testament like Balaam. Not only is Balaam the son of Beor referenced to in 2 Peter 2:15, Jude 1:11, Revelation 2:14, in the context of referring to the Diablos 2:10 and Satan 2:13, describes how Balaam taught Balak to cast Baalim a net before the sons of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit fornication. Eat things sacrificed to idols and to commit fornication. What I've been asking the brothers, hey, what is meat offered to idols according to the Torah? You understand? Because that's still, you still got to abide by that. All right. This is the three nets of Belial language of the Damascus document. Write that down too. Write down the three nets of Belial. Write down the Damascus document. Write down the temple scroll. All right. When the zealots of Sakari finally did seize control of the Temple Mount, in the aftermath of all these demands, as the uprising turned more extremist and moved into its Jacobin phase. For the first thing they did was to burn the debt records. Say, well, get rid of all the records and say we owe them. We don't owe them. He owe these heathens nothing. Burn them records. Right. Man, radical. We're gonna have a great reset around this deal, huh? Well, that'll be tight, boy. Wipe away all your debts. I mean, in other words, how you gonna be fighting in a revolutionary war, but you in debt to them? Okay. So one of the first things they did was burn all the debt documents. In essence, releasing our people from bondage. See that? Now look at this. Look at this. Burn the debt records to cause a rising of the poor against the rich. They also burned the Herodian palaces, including both Bernice's and that of her brother Agrippa II, presumably the one in which he had reclined and viewed the temple sacrifices while eating. Later, they also burned all the palaces of the high priests appointed by Herodians. Look at that. Right? Because the Herodians had infiltrated the priesthood as well. You know what I mean? Appointed by Herodians, all of whom appear finally to have been slaughtered, including James's nemesis, Ananias. Oh, boy. This war against Rome, y'all, believe it or not, was a Messianic war. That's what the history tells a slightly different story than what we have in what we call New Testament literature. All right. And, you know, some people may, you know, disagree with it or not. It's all good, brother. We ain't mad at you. All right. For y'all that's joining us, we read out of Robert Eisenman's book. All right. James, the brother of Jesus, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, Volume 1, the historical James. Paul, the enemy, and Jesus' brothers, apostles. Wait till we go into that. Mm-hmm. Wait.
So they got more of that good stuff. Man, that's just my first. Y'all don't even know that one again. Yeah, like.
All right, right here. It says, in fact, the issue we have been discussing here was the crux of the issue chosen by the lower priests when they stopped sacrifice on behalf of foreigners, including the emperor, and rejected their gifts in the temple. This rejection was contrary to the practice and point of view of the reigning Herodian high priests. The reigning Herodian high priests. Responsible for the death of people like James. Yeah, the Messiah's brother. Responsible for the death of people like James. The rejection of these gifts and sacrifices was the issue on which the lower priests, called by some Levites, chose to take their stand 3.5 years after the death of James. They banged out. See, so Jerusalem, y'all, was a powder keg. It was not like everybody just, you know, I just love you. And, you know what I mean? Y'all was a war zone. It was a war zone. You understand? And these men that we reading about, whether it's Simon, Peter, James, all of them followed Mashiach. They knew him. Brother James was his brother. You know what I mean?
I think he left him in charge.
Absolutely. James is the one that's in charge. All right. Now watch this. The carnage that ensued, including the butchering of most or almost all the high priests. Wow. And the burning of their palaces and those of the Herodians, culminated in the election, as we have mentioned, of the simple stone cutter Phineas, as opposed to this, the highly Paulinized 1 Peter. However, retrospectively presents the following recommendation. For the sake of the Lord, accept the authority of every social institution, the emperor as the supreme authority, and the governors as commissioned by him to punish criminals and praise good behavior. God wants you to behave well, so fear God. Here is the God-fearing terminology, and honor the emperor, 2 and 13. Paul in Romans 13, 1-8, which uses the all righteousness and commandment of James, royal law, according to the scripture, to the same effect. At this time, right before the uprising, the lower priests or Levites won the right to wear the white linen of the high priest. Acts is very interested in the number of priests who are joining the new movement, as it appears in the preamble of the stoning of Stephen. And the word of the Most High increasing, the number of the disciples in Jerusalem multiplied exceedingly, and a great multitude of priests were obedient to the faith. Acts 6 and 7. In the same vein, later on, Acts 21 and 20 characterizes the majority of James's followers as zealots for the law. Zealots for the law, a priestly notation, as we have seen, going back both to Maccabean high priestly claims and the zeal of Phinehas, by virtue of which they were said to have won their high priestly office in perpetuity, meaning they got it forever. Yeah. To put this into a proper context, these same early church descriptions of James that we are considering here, as we have as well, not only insist that he wore the mitre of the high priest, but also that he wore white linen. It is difficult to escape the impression that all these matters are connected in some manner, and that the Qumran documents or the Dead Sea Scrolls, however one chooses to date them, are the key to unlocking these connections. We having a problem here. We cooking now. Noah's, they ain't lived during the same time, bro. But he's just saying Noah's and James's vegetarianism reevaluated. If y'all get some understanding, give me a Yahoo up in the chat. We ain't trying to lose nobody.
How many years separated from each other? Like Noah and James?
Oh man,
you guess probably
thousands. Y'all get some understanding, give us a Yahoo up in the chat. All praise and glory now to the Most High. All right. Now, where this is going is basically saying that the brothers, the whole Messianic movement was more revolutionary than what's put off today. You know, I mean, history paints it different. All right. We have now, Noah and James vegetarian reevaluated. We now have the wherewithal to explain both the vegetarianism ascribed to Judah Maccabee in 2nd Maccabees and James in these various early church accounts, and the sophisticated reversal in Paul. Judas or Judah Maccabee goes out into the wilderness with 9 other men and eats nothing but wild plants to avoid contracting defilement. Now, that's major. You know, I used to read over there, but I'm thinking that's because, you know, it was only pigs around. Because remember, the Greeks was in Jerusalem sacrificing swine, right? But that don't mean all the lamb and goats and that don't mean all that disappeared out of Israel. So it was all good for them to eat the flesh, even though the temple was under attack and the altar is profane. You understand? Then why they didn't just kill their flocks and eat? Exactly. See what I'm saying? Because the truth about this, the thing is this: if the temple was under attack, or in our case, gone, you understand? Then you don't even have the prerequisite to eat it, because none of the flesh can be lawfully processed for you to eat. It can't be lawfully killed. You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's if you're going by flesh laws. All right. And you're gonna see the brothers ain't going by the dietary law, because that's part of it, right? And the Maccabees knew that. That's 2nd Maccabees 5 and 27. Judas goes out to the wilderness with 9 other men, eats nothing but wild plants to avoid contracting defilement. Well, we all know that they would have never ate pig meat anyway. All right. So they would have never ate swine, pig meat anyway. You understand? So how would they would have? Well, okay. Well, what would have made them defiled then? Because they wouldn't have ate the swine. But what would have stopped them from just killing a lamb or something and eating? The temple is under attack. You can't. You know what I mean? There ain't no righteous priest at the altar to perform the ritual that the Most High calls in his law. And that's if you going by flesh laws. I don't eat flesh. I don't go by flesh laws. If you're going by the dietary laws, then that's what you got to go by. You understand what I'm saying?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right, so trip off this. John the Baptist also designated a righteous one in both Josephus and the Gospels does so as well. James too, because he was holy or consecrated from his mother's womb. And also presumably because he was a Zadik, is pictured as abstaining from animal food as well. James never ate flesh. The Messiah's brother.
Never ate it.
No, Messiah didn't either when you get into the history of everything. He did. You know how somebody gonna get simple, they gonna say, well, that was just James. Y'all, it was 5 brothers and 2 sisters. You mean to tell me he's the only one that don't eat flesh, but everybody else eating flesh? No, it don't work like that.
And then they gotta make him feel comfortable, and then in the household.
It's saying like who's accommodating like that? No, that means the whole household was plant-based then.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Now look at this. Where eating only vegetable fare is concerned, one can conceive of a scenario. Trip off this. And look, he don't even go into the scriptures we pull, but he arrived at this understanding. Robert, I do know when we go to Leviticus 17, 1 through 7, and then verse 13, and Leviticus 7, 11 through 18, he don't even quote that in here. But he still arrived at the same understanding. Where eating only vegetable fare is concerned, one can conceive of a scenario based on the Noahic ideology, where because the sacrifice in the temple was interrupted or performed improperly by impure men having no claim to righteousness, and as a consequence polluted the Noahic permission to eat meat, Genesis 9, 3 through 4, was considered to be withdrawn or no longer in effect by these desert sojourners mindful of the extreme purity demands of perfect righteousness. The temple is gone or under attack. Who gonna properly slaughter and process this flesh so you can eat it? Nobody. Well, that stands even today then. You see that? That stands even today. And if we're going to say Abraham and all them ate flesh, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, well, didn't they, it says in Genesis 26, Abraham kept the law. Well, that means he knew about the law of the process as well. If that's where you want to go, Abraham ate flesh with some angels. Isaac did too, and Jacob, but y'all, they would have knew the laws of process, the laws of the laws to properly process it, so it can be clean in the eyes of the Almighty. You see what I'm saying? If you want to run with that whole thing, you know what I mean? Because even when you read Genesis 18, when Abraham tells somebody to go fetch a kid or something, or fetch that flesh, and he says dress it, right? When you look that word dress up, it means to prepare it. There's laws on preparation of this. And it ain't going to the grocery store. You ain't got nowhere where Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob went to any Gentile meat market and bought some flesh. Huh? Am I lying? No, you don't. And being that they were law keepers before law was written down in Moses' time, that means they knew about the laws of preparation and processing of flesh. If you want to run with they ate flesh, well, y'all, they would have knew about the law that's written in Leviticus about processing too. Noah, he would have knew about it. Abraham, Isaac, everybody that they claim our forefathers ate flesh, well, y'all put their backs on the wall. Well, they would have knew about this law too, because they kept the law, right? Yeah, they kept the law before the law was written down, right? Of course. Well, that means they kept this one too. About not eating no flesh that's been older than 2 days is an abomination. About how to properly process this dead animal so you won't be defiled eating it. You see what I'm saying? Back them down with the script, dirt.
Because especially if you look at that work was trying to get me with Isaac's son went and he was a hunter.
Yeah, but bro, those men, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when you read Genesis 26, 4 and 5, says Abraham kept the law of the Most High. All right. In his laws, when it come down to eating flesh, there are laws of processing and preparation. It has to be slaughtered according to the Torah. You see what I'm saying? According to the law. If not, it's considered unclean and abomination. You see what I'm saying? All right, so that means those men knew about that. The process that you ain't doing today. Put their back on the wall. All right. Now he arrives at the same understanding without even going to the scriptures we pull. I said, okay, there it is. All right.
I had thought about like how long was they waiting for him to just go get a kid or whatever, and slaughter? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
That's a long process. You know what I'm saying? To go through.
Exactly. It's a lot you got to do with that. You got to put the blood in the dust and cover it with the dust. You got to take blood, throw it on altar. You got to burn fat off organs. There's a lot you got to do with that. Yeah.
That sounds like about 4 or 5 months process.
Yeah, that's just a long time, bro.
Jacob's mom told him to go do something. Get that one of them goats or lamb. And his brother was in the field. So
Exactly.
he was waiting a long time to get that meat.
Long time. And I'm saying they had to be slaughtered according to the Torah. Since you say you can eat these kind of meats according to the Torah, right? In the same book of Leviticus is the laws on how to properly prepare it, right? And that ain't being kept. Well, that means what y'all eating is unclean and it's an abomination, even if it ain't pork, shrimp, crab, and lobsters. All right.
And it's more than 3 days.
Yeah, so it's
more than 3.
so it's abomination. This goes back to the salvationary experience of the first Zadik Noah. He was not permitted to eat meat all the days of the flood until he gained dry land and made a proper sacrifice. Really? Really? But he was to pour away the blood and not eat the flesh with blood in it, because the life of the animal was in the blood. Only then was he permitted to resume eating animal life. To some, however, this permission might have appeared dependent on a proper, dependent on a proper, go to page 105. Oh, wait. Right? It's dependent on a proper. I bet you can guess where he's going. Dependent on a proper. Look at this. Look at this. Sacrifice made by righteous priests in the temple. Judah Maccabee was probably not a vegetarian while the temple was properly functioning, but became one when it was considered defiled or sacrifice was interrupted. You see that? So what he knew then that we don't know now. While you over there chewing on your Wendy's cheeseburgers. You understand? If the temple is under attack or the temple is gone, then there are no righteous priests to properly perform the laws or the Torah of preparation or processing. And if it ain't none of them, and that's wild, because true about this, Judah Maccabee and them come from a family of priests. Surely they could have just killed one of them, but the temple was under attack. You see that?
So therefore, you still need a temple.
Yeah. Or an altar. Or an altar. You know what I mean? Abraham and them built altars. Noah and them built altars. He did. Now watch this. But became one when it was considered defiled or the sacrifice interrupted. Often James's vegetarianism and the peculiar dietary habits of many of these charismatic revolutionaries. Oh, what hell? These charismatic revolutionaries or innovators is taken for some kind of asceticism, right? Meaning you just abstain from it. You did. From what we are seeing here, this is not the case. It has to do with the demands of all righteousness and perfect holiness, just as those following the regime of righteousness towards one's fellow and perfecting the way, develop an extreme poverty regime, because to make economic distinctions between oneself and one's neighbor would not be righteous. So too, those following the extreme purity commandments have some question about the permissibility of eating meat. What he arrived at, and y'all, he ain't even not one time pulled up Leviticus 17 and Leviticus 7. But he still arrived at the conclusion that we arrived at. Now look at this. The last category of James's directives to overseas communities is pictured in the book of Acts is abstain from strangled things. The prohibition of James probably had to do with what in English goes by the name of carry-on, again, probably based on the Noahic covenant. Therefore, it would have been seen as applicable to all Noah's human descendants, and as in Hebrew law, generally probably included some sense of beast or fowl that died of themselves or as a result of disease. He calls them pseudo-Clementine, but Clementine homilies 7 and 8. Now look at this. Not only presents Peter as a daily bather and vegetarian like James, but teaching to abstain from the table of demons. Paul in 1 Corinthians 10:21. That is food sacrificed to idols, dead carcasses from animals which have been strangled or caught by beasts, and from blood. And yeah, of course. And from blood. From here on, so he look, he even understanding that the Clementine homilies, Peter is depicted as what? Plant-based. Just like James. All right. From her. No, somebody at the door. No, somebody at the door.
Oh, okay. That's why James.
From her, one may go to the Quran again, the heir to many of these traditions. The nerve in many of these traditions and formulations, as Muhammad succinctly puts it, abstain from swine flesh, blood, things immolated to an idol, and carry on. And it quotes the Quran. The swine flesh prohibition, of course, is normative in Hebrew dietary law. It was no doubt also understood in James's instructions to overseas. But the interesting things in Muhammad's presentation are that which is immolated to an idol, blood and carry on. The Noah covenant, the Balaam circumlocution, and the joiners at Qumran. All the things of these directives are connected in some way, as we have suggested with the Noah covenant, preserved in rabbinic literature. This covenant is usually presented as comprising a variety of moral and behavioral qualities, chief among which are the 3 commandments against idolatry, fornication, manslaughter, or murder. All of these are implied in one way or another too in the directives given by James to overseas communities, even in Acts, admittedly tendentious picture. We have been insisting all along that the one on food or things sacrificed to idol is just a variation of the one on idolatry generally. This is verified. This is verified for us in Paul's correspondence as well, tendentious as it may be. This is also certainly the thrust of the 3 nets of Belial allusion in the Damascus document, backed up in the presentation and revelation of what Balaam taught Balak by the way of deceiving Israel, that these so-called prophets are Gentiles, are Gentiles from areas on the other side of the Jordan in Syria, Perea, Moab, and Idumea is also interesting when it comes to considering Paul's claims as reported in Acts of being a teacher or prophet of some kind. In fact, Paul's claim to be of the tribe of Benjamin is also interesting on this account. Benjamin sometimes functions as a variation of the Belial, Balaam terminology. Bela in Old Testament genealogies, reliable or otherwise, is not only an Edomite king. Bela in Old Testament genealogies, reliable or otherwise, is not only an Edomite king, but the son of Beor, the same parentage ascribed to Balaam. He is also presented as Benjamin's firstborn son, Genesis 46 and 21, 1 Chronicles 7 and 6. Not only have we already noted a word or name identical to it in the temple scroll, in the Dead Sea Scroll, connected with classes of persons debarred from the temple on at least 4. Hold on, y'all. Let me get there.
Jacob's 12th son.
On these 4 different occasions, the epithet sons of Belial is applied in the Old Testament, specifically, check out this, y'all, to Benjamites. Judges 19 and 22, Judges 20 and 13. Now look at this. You see that? The sons of Belial is applied in Old Testament specifically to Benjamites. I think y'all know what that story is about. That story got real bloody, boy. In Judges 19:22 and Judges 20 and 13. Now watch this. Yeah, y'all read that when y'all get to you like, dang. All right. It is for it. Yeah. It is for reasons such as these that we believe the Belial, Balaam, Bela circle of language was being applied in some manner to Paul by those hostile to him, as it was to all Herodians. Of course, because of their Edomite or Idumean origins or connections, the Herodians may already have been making such claims themselves to consolidate the dubious proposition of their Judaic or Hebraic origins. Both Edom's progenitor, Esau and Ishmael, being descendants of Abraham. Paul is also making this claim on his own behalf in the context of reference to Abraham in Romans 11:1, Philippians 3:5 above. He never called himself a Jew, simply an Israelite or Hebrew. In Philippians 3:5, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, to which, of course, is been more symbolical, would have entitled him, even in 1 Corinthians 9:19, above when he reveals his dissimulationist approach. He only says to the Jews, I became as a Jew. So Jews I might gain. How's that for cynicism? In Romans 11:1, he adds, not insignificantly, nor unlike Muhammad thereafter, of the seed of Abraham. At this time, there were no longer any real tribal affiliations among Jews of the kind Paul is signaling, except where priests and Levites were concerned. He said during that first century, there was no more tribal affiliations.
Like I'm from the tribe of
Zebulon, Zebulon, Gad, Asher, all that. He said only amongst the priests, but you know what I mean? Yeah, only amongst the priests was their tribal affiliation. So he said at this time there were no longer any real tribal affiliations among Jews of the kind Paul is signaling, except where priests and Levites were concerned. Significantly, no such claims really ever occurred at Qumran. Y'all hear this? No such claims really ever occurred at Qumran. That's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. All right, where the term Jew is already in use. These having largely disappeared some 700 years earlier. Y'all heard that? Right? He say just like there was no tribal affiliations like that except among the priests, he say significantly no such claims really ever occurred at Qumran. Qumran is where they got the dead, or in the Dead Sea Scrolls, where the term Jew is already in use. These having largely disappeared some 700 years earlier. There also is some indication in rabbinic literature, and certainly in the War Scroll. Y'all write that down. The War Scroll, you understand, was amongst the Dead Sea community. Certainly in the War Scroll at Qumran that Benjamin, sure about this, y'all, there also is some indication in rabbinic literature, and certainly in the War Scroll at Qumran, that Benjamin was a terminology applied to all overseas persons or diaspora Jews. Read it. I'm gonna read it again. There also is some indication in rabbinic literature, and certainly in the War Scroll at Qumran, that Benjamin was a terminology applied to all overseas persons or diaspora Yahudi, right? That Paul was of the tribe of Benjamin would, in these contexts, appear to be more obfuscation and reverse polemics. That reverse polemic, polemic is, you basically destroying somebody through either writing or speaking. It's reverse polemics, converting what may have been his opponent's pejoratives into their mirror opposite again, and a positive effect. In addition, where the Arab connections of Herodians are concerned, Herod's mother was an Arab from Petra. Herod's mother was an Arab from Petra, and his sister was originally married to Costobarus, the Idumean, whose progeny were systematically mixed into the Herodian line. In respect to their Arabness, Herodians too take on the appearance of precursors of Muhammad. Where Paul originally Saul is concerned, there is another reason. Benjamin specifically is evoked in this literature directed at relatively naive overseas Arabs. Conveniently, the archetypical Saul, David's predecessor as king, was of the tribe of Benjamin. Acts 13:21. Ipso facto, so too was his latter-day namesake, Paul. The applicability of James' ban on fornication, like that of Qumran, to this state of affairs is also self-evident. It goes far beyond the rather pro forma and superficial references to it in Paul's letters, though there is this more or less straightforward, overt sense to it. For instance, as we saw when the Messiah is presented sitting with tax collectors and sinners, or speaking positively about prostitutes. This is meant to counter-indicate just the kinds of injunctions one gets in James' directives and at Qumran. Stick with me for a second. To show that Jesus, or Yahshua, the loving and forgiving Messiah, did not judge persons of this genre, but even kept table fellowship and ate with them. Always an important thing, like meaning it's stressed in the Gospels. You know what I mean? He wasn't hard on the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the sinners. You know what I mean? And he's saying that the historical Messiah was. You see what I'm saying? Now watch this. Watch this.
And that would make more sense because those are the people he came for. You know what I'm saying? The ones that was still in their sin.
So what he was saying was that so when you be like, all right, well, the table fellowship and all that, and you got to be careful with all that because Messiah ate with so-and-so and so-and-so, right? But what we about to get into, he about to show we all been victims of some literary propaganda. You know what I mean? Now, watch this. This is the upshoot, too, of tablecloth vision vouchsafed to Peter in Acts. In which he learns not to make distinctions between holy and profane. Hold on, the Most High said make distinction between holy and profane. Right. Watch this. Just in time to inspect the household of the Roman centurion, Cornelius from Caesarea. Here Cornelius is described as a righteous one and a God-fearer, one born witness to by the whole nation of the Jews. Acts 10:22. 1 Peter 2:13. Much as Felix, merciless butcher of innumerable resistance leaders, is described later in Acts as having very accurate knowledge about the things of the way. Acts 24:22. Both assertions are quite simply preposterous. The visit Peter makes to Cornelius' household in Caesarea, where he again explains, God has taught me not to call any man profane or unclean, while the righteous or pious Roman centurion is fasting and praying. Cynicism worthy of Paul above will be equivalent to the one his namesake, the Simon and Josephus, pays to the household of Agrippa I. Again, in Caesarea, trip off this, that the Simon and Josephus goes to Caesarea as well. That's why he's saying they got to be Peter. You know what I mean? The historical Peter. Simon and Josephus pays to the household of Agrippa I again in Caesarea. In Acts version of these occurrences, not only does Peter assert that it is unlawful for a Hebrew man to keep company with one or come near one of, hold on, y'all gonna see where I'm going with this in a minute. No, wait. All right. One of another race, but he concludes that in every nation, he who fears him or works righteousness is acceptable to him. Unlike Acts, Peter, the Simon and Josephus, who inspects the household of Agrippa I in Caesarea, wants to bar Herodians from the temple as unclean. So he makes a distinction. Now, this one leads a church in Jerusalem. He's a revolutionary. He's zealot. He's zealous. Now, he makes distinctions between the profane and the holy. Now watch this. Once the bar Herodians from the temple is unclean, not accept them. Agrippa, whose beneficence and reputation among the Jews, Josephus, as we have already remarked, extols, showered this Simon with gifts and then dismissed him. For his part, the Simon in Acts learns to make no distinctions between men, nor call any man unclean. But these table fellowship scenes in the Gospels are such favorites for precisely the same reason that more obsessive, purity-minded Jews have never comprehended how much foreigners in general instinctively wish to see them discomfited. You see, like, why? Like, all right, well, y'all know how we get down. Like, why is it a sense to go over and beyond to have us defiled, to go against our beliefs? You know what I mean? So he's saying that there's something else going on here. Now watch this. Watch this. Bing, 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 bing. The man on the street in the world at large, if not in Palestine, wishes for the most part to feel that prostitutes, tax collectors, and sinners like himself are acceptable and rub the faces of the holier than thou, more piously pretentious types into the mud of everyday existence. The presumably Hellenistic authors of these gospel scenes seem to have understood this very well and played on it as Paul obviously did. Watch this. What fun it must have been to portray the Messiah in Palestine as keeping company with such persons, knowing full well the opposite was true, and how much types like those at Qumran abhorred them. This is not to mention the latter-day satisfaction they would have derived from having people actually believe it for nearly 2,000 years, had they but been around to enjoy it. But the scenes have a political edge as well. You heard that? Them scenes that depict Mashiach, you understand? Like hanging around or actually keeping table fellowship outside of the directives that he gave his brother. He say it's political. It's a whole political agenda as well. All right. But these things have a political edge as well. The Herodians in this period were the Roman tax collectors in Palestine. Their usefulness to Rome in part rested on their effective collection and transmission of revenues. If some spilled off into their own pockets, so much the better. But of course, the Herodian princess we have thus far encountered were also harlots. Remember Bernice, Drusilla, and all them? They was hoes. They were also harlots. None more so than Bernice, whose riches even Josephus admits were prodigious. There is little doubt that her sister Drusilla, Felix's Jewish wife in these scenes and Acts, was rich too. Otherwise, apart from her royalty, what would Felix's interest in her have been? Right. She's just a rich harlot. When Jesus is portrayed as eating and drinking, a glutton and a wine bibber, a friend of tax collectors and sinners, Matthew 11 and 19, Luke 7 and 34. This right after John the Baptist is portrayed as neither eating bread nor drinking wine. Scripture is saying that the Jesus it is portraying approved of such persons. Nor does it picture Jesus as fussing over purity regulations, particularly where food is concerned, nor making distinctions between people or nations on such a basis regarding table fellowship. Meaning Jesus, about this, y'all, was a Paulinist, or Paul knew Jesus better than any of his closest associates. Wow. But you got that written in the Gospels, correct?
Right. So go ahead. No, I was going to say, so it's like it all ties in, like, of the agenda that was at play of trying to make Paul's message the one and true message of Messiah.
Okay.
So it makes it more like clearer, like when people be like, Paul knew Christ more than him, because when you go into the Gospels, you know what I'm saying, it seems like everybody that's, you know, around Messiah at the time, it's like, okay, like John the Baptist, you would look at him like, oh yeah, he's too hard and he's too this and too that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Christ ain't looked at like that,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And then his disciples, you know what I'm saying, they coming against like, you know, certain things or whatever. And like James, he giving directives and telling Paul not to do this and do that or whatever. What I'm saying is just like, it just make it more like cohesive or whatever. Like,
I got you. Now he's saying, now look at this. Meaning Jesus was Apollinist, or Paul knew Jesus better than any of his closest associates. In fact, as we have remarked, one can almost make a rule of thumb regarding such polemics. I remember what a polemic is, right? It's either you writing or saying something you meant to destroy something, destroy a message, right? Where there is a statement in Paul, who according to his own testimony never met the Jesus he is speaking about. Who according to his own testimony never met the Jesus he is speaking about, and had no firsthand knowledge, trip off this, had no firsthand knowledge of his teaching. That is echoed in the Gospels. One can assume the progression is from Paul and then into gospel redaction, and not vice versa. Wow. Now when I read it, I'm like, oh, dang, okay, what you mean? Like, I don't know. He's basically saying that the Messiah that you read about today in the Gospels is based off Paul's understanding of the Jesus that he never met. Right? Mm-hmm. Now how could that be possible? Now watch this. The unschooled person, innocent of such stratagems or strategy, and the power of literary or retrospective recreation normally reverses this. Meaning, you know what I mean, it's the Gospels, then it's Paul's letters. Because that's the order you got in the Bible, ain't it? Right? And he like, if you look a little deeper, it's Paul's letters than the Gospels. Right? Now, y'all watch this. We're going to come back to this.
They kind of set the stage, and then they reversed it, because then it's like it set the stage for Paul to come in or whatever.
Now watch this. I want to share something with y'all. I want to share something with y'all. Hold on. Just stick with me. I know y'all like, hold on, man. What you saying? Good. Hold on. I got you. Hold on. Now watch this. How could that be possible? Right? Now watch this, y'all. Mess me up, I say. Oh, good night, boy. Good night. Now watch this, y'all. I'm gonna share this with y'all. This right here is the Huff Post. Now look what this say on the screen. All right. Look at this. Dang. I was like, you know what? Let me do some digging. You dig? He say the unschooled person that's not aware of the strategy. That's a strategy. You know, that's aimed against him. He thinks it's opposite. He thinks it's the Gospels, then Paul's letters. Right? That's what he thinks. Now, what they say up on the screen?
Chronological New Testament is different from and yet the same as the New Testament, familiar to Christians. It contains the same 27 documents, but sequences them in the chronological order in which they were written.
Oh man, y'all dwell on that real quick. Let me go ahead and pay this water bill real quick. Hold on, trip out that. Now, who all knew that there was a chronological New Testament? Hmm?
Yeah.
Is the New Testament in chronological order that you read?
Right. Yeah. And then look, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That it would be like that, like I said, because it's going it set the stage for Paul to come in and say that, look, I know Christ more than y'all know him. You know what I'm saying? I know him more than y'all and everything, and make people believe that, because how they view Christ is based on Paul's perception of him.
Yeah.
And that I was thinking, like, dang, that's probably why you ain't got that many stories about Christ, like, and you keep breaking up through time. Like, he probably just heard from word of mouth different things that was, you know what I'm saying, that was told about him. Like, all right, he was born from the virgin birth, or he was born from Joseph, whatever, or that, you know what I'm saying, he was what he did when he was 12, and he probably just heard certain things from word of mouth or whatever, and really didn't know. So that's why you ain't got too many teachings in the gospel. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm over trying to see if I can find one with it in there. With the order of it and everything.
Yeah.
Like, how would they organize it?
You know what's crazy? A person in my an officer at my school came to me personally and talked to me about that. He was like, you know about the chronological order of the Bible?
Right.
You ever looked up that? He said the chronological order of the Bible. He was like, these things in the Old Testament or whatever ain't in chronological order. Like, really, like I was just saying how, like, a officer at my school, security guard at my school, pulled me to the side and asked me, "Have you seen the chronological order of the Bible, and how, like, the Old Testament or whatever is not in the, you know, it's not all the way aligned or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And he was just showing me, well, this actually supposed to go here, and this book actually happened before this.
Right. So again, it's the same 27 documents, right? But it's in different order. Now remember what he's saying. He's saying that the progression is Paul's letters, then the Gospels. The unschooled think, or the unlearned think, is the Gospels, then Paul's letters. That's because the order that, you know, the New Testament is in when we flip open and read it, correct?
Right.
All right. But what if it ain't the case? Okay. Well, let's get into it. All right. Okay. I'm gonna scroll on down the tapes. All right. It's a chronological New Testament is different from and yet the same as the New Testament familiar to Christians. It contains the same 27 documents, but sequences them in the chronological order in which they were written. See? Dang, so whose stuff was written first? Hold on. The familiar New Testament begins with the Gospels and concludes with Revelation for obvious reasons. Jesus is the central figure of Christianity, and so the New Testament begins with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Revelation is about the last things and the second coming of Jesus, so it makes sense that it comes at the end. Revelation and the Gospels function as bookends for the New Testament. Everything else comes between. Acts, 13 letters attributed to Paul, and 8 attributed to other early Christian figures. That's the familiar New Testament, right? A chronological New Testament sequences the documents very differently. Its order is based on contemporary mainstream biblical scholarship. So it ain't MALAKIMAC be making none of this up, dog. You know what I mean? This is look. I'll post it in the chat. Hold on. So, let me get that out. You found it? Yeah, don't take it. Look, it don't take long.
I just looked up chronological order.
Yeah, pop right on up, don't it? So I ain't making this stuff up, Hebrew. Dang. Hold on. Let me get y'all together real quick. Wow. All right, it's in the chat. My KN says a different order can change the way you see or process things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now watch this. All right. Contemporary mainstream biblical scholarship. Though there is uncertainty about dating some of the documents, but there is a scholarly consensus about the basic framework. It begins. The chronological order of the New Testament, it begins with 7 letters attributed to Paul. Meaning Paul's letters were written before the Gospels. Oh, wait. Huh? So when Robert Eisman say, you know what I mean, like the progression is Paul's letters, then the Gospels. You dig? He wasn't lying. Because Paul's letters were written before any of the Gospels. Oh, that means Paul's version of a man named Jesus that he never met kicks off. He's the first one on record documented. It's his letters. Then the Gospels and all that. Like, well, all the apostles in there, man, like, dang. You see that? The chronological New Testament, it begins with 7 letters attributed to Paul, all from the 50s. So that means the Messiah died around between 30 and 33, somewhere up in there, right? The first letters, or what you call books of the New Testament, come from Paul. They don't come from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I don't know. Paul in the 50s. Wow. The first gospel is Mark, not Matthew, written around 70, around the fall of Jerusalem. Right? Revelation is not last, but almost in the middle, written in the 90s. 12 documents follow Revelation, with 2 Peter the last, written as late. This is how we know this was written by Peter. Written as late as near the middle of the 2nd century. Huh? Paul influence, huh, boy? Oh, boy. Oh, you say what? You pick up them Clementine homilies, son. Keela say, whoa. Wow, Ema said, I know you knew that. You know, you've been to seminary and theology school. I know you knew. And then look at this, y'all. The first books of the New Testament, if we talk about chronologically, is not Matthew. It starts off with 7 letters of Paul written in the 50s. Wow. A chronological New Testament is not only about sequence, but also about chronological context, the context and time, the historical context in which each document was written. Words have their meanings within their temporal context in the New Testament and the Bible as a whole. Seeing and reading the New Testament in chronological sequence matters for historical reasons. It illuminates Christian origins. Much becomes apparent. Beginning with 7 of Paul's letters illustrates that there were vibrant Christian communities spread throughout the Roman Empire before there were written gospels. His letters provide a window into the life of very early Christian communities. Now remember, his letters is all based off the man Jesus that he never met. And his letters and his teachings in many ways are against the disciples that met Messiah. Oh, wait. What about this? Placing the Gospels after Paul makes it clear that as written documents, they are not the source of early Christianity. Huh? You hear that? Placing the Gospels after Paul makes it clear that as written documents, they are not the source of early Christianity, but its product. Its product.
You would have had to say it started with Paul.
So it started with Paul then. Paul's version of who the Messiah is, which differs from the apostles. Look at this. Placing the Gospels after Paul makes it clear that as written documents, they are not the source of early Christianity, but its product. The gospel, the good news and about Jesus existed before the Gospels. They are the products of early Christian communities several decades after Jesus's historical life, and tells us how those communities saw his significance in their historical context. Reading the Gospels in chronological order, beginning with Mark, demonstrates that early Christian understandings of Jesus and his significance developed as Matthew and Luke used Mark as a source. They not only added to Mark, but often modified Mark. Oh, things been added to and modified, huh? Meaning changed. Y'all go ready to hang us off the YHWH'S for telling y'all, like, this ain't our information. Y'all ready to hang us off the YHWH'S, whatever. Leading the people astray. Man, look, we just put, look, this information been out there. Seeing John separated from the other gospels and relatively late in the New Testament makes it clear how different his gospel is. Inconsistently metaphorical and symbolic language, it is primarily witness or testimony to what Jesus had become in the life and thought of John's community. Realizing that many of the documents are from the, what about this? Realizing that many of the documents are from the late 1st and early 2nd centuries. Y'all, that means it wasn't even, many of them weren't even written by the apostles. Dang, because they was dead by then. Allow us to glimpse developments in early Christianity in its 3rd and 4th generations. In general, they reflect a trajectory that moves from the radicalism of Jesus and Paul to increasing accommodation of the cultural conventions of the time. Well, we compromising them. Awareness of the above matters not just for historical reasons, but also for Christian reasons. American Christianity today is deeply divided. At the heart of the division, especially among Protestants, is 2 very different ways of seeing the Bible and the New Testament. About half of American Protestants belong to churches that teach that the Bible is the inerrant word of God and inspired by God. The key word is inerrant. Christians from antiquity, or back in the day, history, right, onward have affirmed that the Bible is the word of God and inspired without thinking of it is inerrant. Biblical inerrancy is an innovation of the last few centuries. Y'all hear this? They saying that's a new doctrine that is inerrant. It ain't got no errors. Look, they came up with that a couple hundred years ago. That's new. Come on, ain't no errors. It is. Biblical inerrancy is an innovation of the last few centuries, becoming widespread in American Protestantism beginning only 100 years ago. Only 100 years ago. There ain't no errors in it. Right. It is affirmed mostly in independent Protestant churches, those not part of mainline Protestant denominations. Catholics have never proclaimed, think about this, Catholics have never proclaimed the inerrancy or infallibility of the Bible. You trip off that? I mean, the Roman Catholics know it has errors, even as many have not been taught much about the Bible. Biblical inerrancy is almost always combined with the literal and absolute interpretation of the Bible. If it says something happened, it happened. If the Bible says something is wrong, it's wrong. For Christians who see the Bible this way, whatever Paul wrote to his communities in the 1st century is absolutely true for all time. For all time. For them, whatever the Gospels report that Jesus said and did, it really was said and done by him. So also the stories of the beginning and end of his life are literally and factually true. He was conceived in a virgin without a human father. His tomb really was empty, even though it was guarded by Roman soldiers, and his followers saw him raised in physical bodily form. These Christians are unlikely to embrace a chronological New Testament. It will not only change the way they see the Bible and the New Testament, but also make them suspect and probably unwelcome in the Christian communities to which they belong. There are also many Christians, as well as many who have left the church, for whom the inerrancy of the Bible and its literal and absolute interpretation are unpersuasive, incredible, impossible to believe. For these Christians, as well as others interested in the origins of Christianity, a chronological New Testament, I trust, can be interesting, helpful, and illuminating. What we just learned, y'all. Paul's letters came first, then the Gospels. So when Robert Eisman said, you know, the progression is from Paul, then the Gospels, you know what I mean? He actually wasn't lying. He actually wasn't lying. All right. If y'all get some understanding so far, give me a Yahoo up in the chat. Y'all know I ain't trying to lose nobody. All right. I ain't trying to lose nobody. You feel me? All praise and glory now to the Most High.
I'm thinking that's a word search. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, I think that was a word search. Why are these letters right there? But I see First Thessalonians.
We talking about Second Peter, right? That's the last one.
Yeah. And there's something written as late as the 2nd century, which means Peter couldn't have wrote it. But 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 15 is where he supposedly shouts out Paul and calls him a wise man. And calls his letters scriptures. Now, there wasn't the scripture is what was already established. It wouldn't be his letters. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Yeah, it get deep. It gets deep. It gets deep. All right, we got the Yahoo in the building. All right. I hear you, Caleb. For sure. Okay, I got something else I want to show y'all. You know, we got to bring a second witness to the table, correct? We got to bring a second witness to the table. Hold on. Let me eggs out some of this stuff. Oh, yeah, let me show y'all this. Let me show y'all this. Okay, we're going to stop sharing. All right, go right here. And I'm going to show y'all another one. Hold on one second. All right. Let me share the screen. Share. Okay. Thing. I think it's this one right here. All right. I'm gonna put this in the chat as well. Remember, you said some of these dates ain't agreed on, but we just wanted to put it on out there, all right?
And even if they're not agreed on, you know what I'm saying, roughly speaking,
Dang.
if it's all before, you know what I'm saying, the gospel, that's a viewpoint.
Yeah, it really is, brother.
If, you know, the exact date or whatever.
Right, it really is. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is that they all know. It did. All right. A lot of it based off Paul's understanding. It's crazy, man. And that's why you hear people say, you know, Paul understood Jesus more than the disciples. And you're like, look how silly that sounds silly. All right. So I just threw it in there. So this is Appendix 8, chronological order of the books of the New Testament. Now look what it said. It says, while no arrangement of these books can be made with absolute confidence, the following dates are sufficiently reliable to serve the purpose of the Bible student. All right. Now this one right here says the letter of James was written in 50 AD. All right. Then look at all this. 1 Thessalonians, Paul. 2 Thessalonians, Paul. Galatians, Paul. 1 Corinthians, Paul. 2 Corinthians, Paul. Romans, Paul. Philippians, Paul. Colossians, Paul. Philemon, Paul. Ephesians, Paul. Luke, Paul's boy. Acts written by Luke, Paul's boy. 1 Timothy, Paul. Titus, Paul. 2 Timothy, Paul. Dang! Dang! What is going on here? There's a little section left for everybody else. It's like they insignificant. Look at all this. Outside of James, you got all these other ones. Outside of James, you got all these other ones. Paul or his affiliates. Look at that. you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, wait.
All the way down to Hebrew.
Dang. So y'all see that? All that deal kicked off Paul. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Then you get to Mark, 66 AD. Matthew, 67 AD. Hebrews, 67. 1 Peter, 67 through 68. This one says 2 Peter was written around 68. You know what I mean? But they've been arguing over there for 1,800 years that actually 2 Peter was not written by Peter. If y'all look any old videos that we had, we show it. All right. All right. Jude, 68. Apocalypse, meaning Revelation, 68. All right. The Gospel of John in 85. And Epistles of John, 90 through 95 AD.
So you know them at the same time that I thought Revelation was wrote at that time.
You feel me? I mean, you know, you get some certain dates they don't agree upon. You dig? But the point being, bro, do y'all see this? That means Paul's understanding of who the Messiah is, you understand, is actually what formed Christianity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, look, and when I say Christian, I'm also speaking about the Hebrew Israelite. You know what I mean? I'm talking the Messianic Hebrew Israelites. He did, like straight up. Straight up. Oh, wait.
Understanding is off of Paul too.
Exactly. Exactly. You ain't got the disciples in the Paul. You got James and 50. Then you got Paul like on a mission. He dropping back to back to back. He dropping letters like No Limit was dropping CDs back in the 90s. He ain't playing no games. That's crazy, bro. When I looked at this, I said, man, I gotta show that to the people, man. You know what I mean? Yeah, look, y'all. The Gospels was not written before the letters of Paul. They were not. They were not. Hard for a lot of people to swallow. You know what I mean? All right, let's get back to this. We almost done, and we gonna pray on out, y'all. All praises to the Most High. You say what? What else? Yeah, that's what he would. We had to come back, boy. He had to come.
The Gentiles got balled. So they said, I got something for y'all. I'm gonna write this letter, that letter, that letter. And your name is Paul instead of Rick. I'm gonna show y'all who y'all messing with.
All right.
You call my big cousin.
Okay. In fact, I'm gonna go back. In fact, as we have remarked, one can almost make a rule of thumb regarding such polemics, where there is a statement in Paul who, according to his own testimony, never met the Jesus he is speaking about and had no firsthand knowledge of his teaching. No firsthand knowledge of his teaching. But got so much to write about. Who you learned it from? He said he didn't learn from the disciples. He didn't learn from man. Well, where you get this from? Oh, wait. Who, according to his own testimony, never met the Jesus he's speaking about and had no firsthand knowledge of his teaching that is echoed in the Gospels. One can assume the progression is from Paul and then into gospel redaction. I mean, editing, y'all, and not vice versa. Now, that ain't hard to see now that we just pulled up the chron. They have a chronological New Testament. And Paul's letters were all written before a gospel that you have in your Bible was written. Did we just prove that?
Yeah.
We ain't making that up. The unschooled person innocent of such stratagems and the power of literary or retrospective recreation normally reverses this. Absolutely. Because the first book in your New Testament is Matthew. Correct? We have already seen one important such speech above where Jesus is portrayed as saying, not that which enters the mouth makes a man polluted, but that which goes forth out of the mouth, this pollutes a man. Matthew 15:11, Mark 7:15. You know, we go into Matthew, as you keep reading, he's talking about eating with unclean or unwashed hands. We understand that, right? But we can't act like the pig meat eating preacher don't go there and say, you know what I mean? I can eat pig meat, I can eat shrimp, crab, lobsters, because it don't defile me. Don't they go to, they use that. Just like what Paul say, whatever sold in the shambles, you can eat that. But that, what was written, or when Paul wrote, whatsoever sold in the shambles, eat and don't ask no questions for conscience sake, that was written before this Matthew account, which says, Messiah said that whatever goes in your mouth don't pollute you, but it's what comes forth. And of course, you want to be operating in wicked thoughts and all that, understand? Because that will defile you, you understand? But again, the agenda here is to destroy what the Nazarenes believe and teach about table fellowship and eating flesh, specifically flesh offered to idols. That's the whole mission here. You know what I mean? Now watch this. In response to questioning Jesus, is portrayed as being so agitated that he lists most of the Noahic prohibitions, that is evil inclination, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, lying, blasphemy, covetousness, etc. Matthew 15:19, Mark 7:22. And then adding how that which goes into the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out the toilet. And is cast out the toilet bowl. The gospel redactor, the gospel editor, however, grows so effusive on this score that he ends up having Jesus conclude, these are the things which pollute a man, but eating with unwashed hands does not make. Remember, he called the gospel writers earlier Hellenistic. Because when you start getting into it, you be like, dang, they ain't even right there. It's crazy, bro. You mean tell me it was written by the same audience that Paul was in league with? Wow. Make a man unclean, Matthew 15:20, and pause. Because of an ancient artificer's antinomian bias, poor Jesus is pictured as gainsaying has become for modern hygiene a fundamental rule, setting aside for the moment the issue of whether the law is relevant or not. To consider material of this kind either the word of God or a revelation of the Holy Spirit is simply absurd. Rather, it is more edifying to regard it as the mischievousness of malevolent polemical interchange. Remember what polemics are? You understand? To say something or write something down to destroy the message of someone. He's saying that's what it is. He was like, you understand? This is literary war. This is literary propaganda aimed at the masses. And it's been running on automatic for 2,000 years. You dig? And no, I ain't telling you don't read the Bible or don't read the New Testament. There's plenty of righteous nuggets you can get. You understand? But if it don't apply, you feel me? If it goes against the eternal character of the Almighty, meaning he don't change. Most High always said he had a problem with us for not separating holy from profane. Whether that was food or whether that was people. He always had a problem with us. You dig? So if we read something that goes against that, then you got to bring that into question. Hold on. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Now watch this. Since the meaning of the Greek term strangled things can also be looked upon as having to do with homicide. Homicide. I mean, you killed that animal. Homicide, and since the priestly author of this aspect of the Noah narrative does consider the taking of animal life to be a form of homicide, when we have in James's directives to overseas communities, even as refracted in Acts, a reflection of 3 of the principal Noahic prescriptions: idolatry, manslaughter, and fornication. If the episode as Acts records it, or something somewhat approximating it, is true, then it should not be surprising that the Tzaddik James applied the terms of the Noahic covenant to the salvationary status, look at this, of persons who had not yet come into the Mosaic covenant. Salvation. I mean, often such persons are referred to as God-fearers. A God-fearer would appear to be someone who has attached himself to the Israelite community or synagogue, but has not yet come in completely. all right, or taking the whole of the Mosaic law upon himself. We can detect such a status. We can detect such a status in the usage ger nelve, resident alien, or the allied terminology nilvim or joiners evoked in the Damascus documents eschatological exposition of the Zadokite covenant. Eschatology means the study of end times. Of the Zadokite covenant from Ezekiel. In the book of Esther, the term joiner specifically denotes non-Jews attaching themselves to the Hebrew community in some kind of associated status. In important context in the Damascus document, Dead Sea Scrolls, for instance, the one referring to seeing salvation and the temple scroll on barring classes of unclean persons from the temple noted above, there is conspicuous reference to this idea of fearing God as well, that in these directives depicted in Acts, James would apply the categories of the Noahic covenant to the salvationary state of such God-fearers or Gentiles. All right? Or Nilvain is not only not surprising, but eminently reasonable. All right? That's what it is right there for the day, y'all. You know, we'll come back and dive some more on in. You dig? But you know how we, back again. We got to put the back on the wall, Darius. You already know. Y'all talk to me though, man. What y'all feeling, man? Talk to me. Talk to me. There's definitely a lot to think about. You know what I mean? But what stood out to me was when Robert Eisman made that and said the progression is Paul's letters in the Gospels. When I actually looked it up, it blew my mind. I said, oh, okay. His letters were actually written before any gospel was ever written. A chronological New Testament, you know what I mean? Like real talk, bro. Real talk. He was throwing blows on Big Dog. All praise and glory now to the Most High. What Nehemiah at, man? I don't know if he been back there listening or whatever.
That we was able to cipher through this and see.
Yeah.
They're giving us some revelation on how Paul was trying to demonstrate and change the word.
Yeah. It's crazy, bro. But it's really it's his understanding of the Messiah that he never met. And that'd be different if he never met him, but his message was the same as the disciples and the apostles. And you be like, oh, okay. Like him come with a whole different message, opposite of what the Messiah taught them. You know what I mean? Or total opposite of what his brother was teaching and all that. And who was an apostle who had fiery tongues put on him. Bro, you got to question all this. Certain things you got to question. And look, that don't mean, you understand? That don't mean that you can't read some out of Paul's letters that, you know, is a righteous nugget. Like, you need to know about operating in the fruits of the spirit. You need to know about spiritual warfare in high places. You need to know, let him that stole steal no more, but work with his own hands. You know what I mean? So I ain't never saying there ain't nothing you can't get up out of it. You understand? But there are things that he teaches that's complete opposite of what the apostles are teaching. You know what I mean? And that got to get called into question. You feel me? So, I mean, whatever you read out of the Bible or any book, like if you can't take it and apply it to your life, then what is you doing? You just read? You know what I mean? You should be able to pull these righteous nuggets of jewels out of whatever you taking in and affect righteous change within you and those around you. You know what I mean? Make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know you got something to say.
I was saying, like, even when it comes to the letters, when, like, say, like in Galatians, right? In Galatians 5, when he said, don't be under bondage to no man, like, you could take that in the context. We know what he was saying and who he was talking about. But if you wasn't even tripping off the context and you just saw that, let myself don't be no bondage, don't be under bondage to any man. That's not something that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? To say, like, don't be under bondage to no type of man, or under slavery to no man. You could think of that like, don't be a slave to no man's thoughts, or don't be a slave to, you know what I'm saying?
That's the same man that says, get another man's wealth.
True. But I'm saying, like, if you just take that, like, besides,
he's double-minded. That's what James is telling you. He's a double-minded man.
Most definitely.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah.
Hey, let me holler at you real quick. Go ahead, bro. You saying what?
I'm saying that's for a reason. Of course, you can pull righteous nuggets from it, like you said before, because at the end of the day, if you couldn't, you know what I'm saying, if you couldn't, it wouldn't fool nobody. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what Satan do anyway. Like you got to mix the lies in.
Same. Exactly. Yeah, I seen that. But trip off this, bro. Because what we was reading out of Robert Eisman's book is that the progression is Paul's letters, then the Gospels. You know what I mean? You like to unlearn to think it's the Gospels, then Paul's letters. I mean, we all think that because of the order that the New Testament is written in. But bro, when you look at that, there's something called a chronological New Testament.
Right. I kind of saw a bit of it in some family situations.
Bro, chronological New Testament. All of Paul's letters were written before all the Gospels. All of Paul's letters were written before all the Gospels. Ain't that crazy? Bro, that's wild. You understand? So now you dealing with a man whose message about a man that he never met. You understand? It's the main doctrine getting pushed.
It's the whole doctrine of confusion. Because Christians and Hebrews run to Paul to try to justify or abrogate or, this and all what you would call the Torah. Well, nobody would never open up Paul's letters and read them when the Torah was being read in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, for you to do that today, it's a great discernment. And you wonder why everybody fooled. One, you let your enemy touch your hands, touch your stuff. Again, we ain't saying stuff, definitely ain't saying put it down, and definitely ain't saying that it's false. I'm just saying understand what you read. You know what I'm saying?
Understand.
You don't understand. You don't have. Listen. Let's be real. A lot of people going up in school. You get to a level in school, you start getting to get judged by not just being able to read, but reading what comprehension. And that's when you notice people will set apart. Mm-hmm. Can you grab what you read? Now I can read bring out Rome 3:7 and symbol 2 Chronicles 12:7 Paul and Misty is that like, what does that mean for you? Or leader. But what do that mean for you? Did y'all read this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all all go look that up. Brother Judah, he sent that to me in the Facebook inbox. I just didn't chance to get back with the eye. But he sent that to me. Y'all read Romans 3:7, 2 Corinthians 12:7. And then it's an Amos too. I think it's Amos 3 and all them sevens.
Yeah.
Amos 3:7, Romans 3:7, 2 Corinthians 12:7. And Romans and Corinthians, Paul admits he is a liar. You said what?
No, I said this dude said he will lie to further the gospel.
Yeah.
So it's just like
that, brother. So listen, you think that's the knowledge of the Most High when he tells you in his 10, don't bear false witness. Yeah. And then this prophet that Christ spoke against that will come, right? Yeah. Tells you, look, just look up emphasis. Let that be your key word and start there.
Yeah. Oh, wait. What you got, brother? Bring it on.
Okay.
Why did it bring it out, bro?
Romans 3:7. It says, "For if the truth of God has more abounded through my lie unto his glory."
What else called it? What else called? Look at what else on that.
Boy, that boy had that old man on it.
That don't even match up like a true.
Bro, listen to that. For if the truth of Yah has more abound through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I judged as a sinner?
Because you lied. Exactly. You know he didn't answer his own question.
No, but what he's trying to do, he's trying to get simple.
All right, what's the next? Pull the next one up. 2 Corinthians 12:7.
Come on, Paul.
No, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, because he said
maybe they'll see.
He said it himself.
2 Corinthians 12:7. Unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, The messenger of Satan.
The messenger of who?
The messenger of Satan.
The messenger of who?
The messenger of Satan.
Read that slow so we can understand who is this messenger of Satan.
Messenger of Satan.
Unless,
Boy, got a demon on.
Unless I should be exalted above measure.
Who is the I?
Paul.
Who is writing this?
Paul.
2 Corinthians written by who?
Paul.
Unless I, Paul, should be exalted. Go ahead.
Above measure. Through the abundance of the revelation.
Which I told you I did most of this by lies. Right? Keep going.
There was given to me a thorn in the flesh.
So somebody came and buffeted him in the flesh because of his lies, his untruths, and his double-mindedness. Keep going.
The messenger of Satan.
He just called himself the what?
The messenger of Satan.
Satan, baby.
To buffet who?
To buffet me. Lest I should be exalted above measure.
Yeah,
I ain't look at that like he was saying like.
No, I'm just saying. What I'm saying is, why is Satan dealing with you? Why are you telling lies? Why are you going against the Torah? Why are you bringing Gentiles into the temple? Everything he's doing is not of God.
Right.
Right. So even if you, I'm not saying.
What other disciples got a messenger of Satan?
Right.
Messenger
of Satan.
Come on, bro.
The messenger of Satan.
He was a deceiver.
Whatever.
For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it may depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness.
And mind you, he never talked to Christ with this written and read. Keep going.
Or never met him.
He never met him.
Right. He claims he talked to him.
Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me.
This boy said this, he's going to stay all this way. This boy said that I should be exalted above measure.
No.
Who else is here, Paul? Luke.
Yeah, Luke, Timothy, Titus, and all that. But y'all see who all turned to shit. Well, who was that? Barnabas. Him and Barnabas got into it. Him and Peter got into it. This is man problematic. All in Ephesus turned against him. You know what I mean? Like, bro, he's problematic. You got anything else, Nick?
No, that's it for me, bro.
Anybody else got anything else?
Well, another thing is, I forgot the scripture, but basically, I think it was Paul who turned the truth of God into a lie.
And then we further it on, he's talking about the apostles and all that. But I'm not behind the apostles, basically nothing.
So he's read further. Daddy, push yourself forward.
And then a liar. It talks about a liar.
That's your man's.
That's your man's in there.
It's your man's.
All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and pray on out. All praise and glory now to the Most High. Going to Darius get us together. You already know. Peace, love, light, healing, and balance of the faithful elect. All praise and glory now. We go ahead. Right. Dorf Sidious. Who was this? Dorf the Sidious. Paul was in line when he said he hates the law. No, he wasn't. Yeah, you tell me the cats to get their whole privy members cut off. You know what I mean? I know that. All right, come on, let's get it done, big dog.
The other book is Paul the Straw. That's crazy. Man,
what's the deal, baby?
No.
Man.
All right, y'all, let's get it done. All praises, glory, honor.
Hallelujah.
To the Most High. Hallelujah. Let's get it done. May the Most High have mercy. Mercy on us all. Most High have mercy on us all. All praise, glory, and honor.
Mercy, Father.
Come on, let's get her done.
Yahweh, I have found myself. I am not my mind. I am not my heart. I am not my body. I am my mind, heart, and body, and the oneness thereof. I am the unity of my soul and spirit with the physical I am. I am masculine energy unified with the feminine. I am the atom. I am the experience and eternal wisdom of my thoughts. If someone shows me hostility, I was that. If someone shows me love, I am that too. I am the earth and a child of it. I am a light within the world. I am a son of the life of the universe. I am a child of light. I am a child of the law. I am one with light and law. I am a son of the living. I am an enemy to death. I am a conqueror of darkness. I am one who perpetuates life within and throughout himself. I am a son of my Father, and my Father is life. I live within him, and he within me. I am one of many and few, made in the likeness of my Creator in body, spirit, mind, heart, and soul. I am the physical, spiritual manifestation of the love of my Father, who is within and around me. I am who I am becoming. I am the image of Yah. Oh, YHWH'S. Yahweh, I am your thoughts. I am your speech. I am your presence and life put into this earthly vessel, that through me and through those of one and like mind, you can be shown to your entire creation, that they may see who is their maker, who shows love and mercy to all that do his will, and do not choose the will of darkness to their own demise. For without is darkness. Selah.
Selah.
The one and true Elohim, God of all things now and present within his law. For without is darkness. Selah.
Selah.
Praise be to thee, the light, the law, the life, the love of this universe, the heavens and the earth. Praise be to thee, O YHWH'S. Forever and ever. And in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, the light of the world, we say now, we are the embodiment. We are the embodiment and image of that light. And every step we take, and every move we make will be the declaration of war on the kingdom of darkness. That our words will be as swords to their throats. Our thoughts will be as, and our thoughts and our prayers will be as thousands and thousands of arrows raining down upon the unsuspecting enemy. And in the name of our King, Yahushua HaMashiach, and by the power of our Elohim, Yahweh, say it with me. We are the image of Yah.
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 And the destruction.
And the destruction.
To the image of Satan.
To the image of Satan.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Real thing is.
With their backs on the wall, he broke. With their backs on the wall, he broke. Oh, praise to the Most High. Hallelujah. All right, y'all, we up out of here.
Glory be to the mighty Yahweh.
Oh, praise the glory and honor.
Praise glory be unto thee.
Most High willing to pray for us, and we can pray for y'all. Dig indeed and truth. Love y'all indeed and truth. Y'all keep yourselves focused out here. Keep yourself focused. Watch your surroundings. And stay prayed up. All right. Love y'all indeed and truth. We about here till the next time, y'all.